Varun, I think this is going to be the first episode on what I've always wanted to do, what I've struggled to find a way to do, which is have conversations that stimulate my mind. What I want for this conversation to be, what I want to sort of put the theme around it is, I want to talk about artificial intelligence in the future of humanity. And I want to get a little more specific, a little more detailed about things, because we can sit and anticipate. Once we start asking precise questions, something might happen. And I want you to not hold back. As far as this vertical of my content is concerned, I don't want it to be particularly catering to, the average intellect. I don't know if that's a condescending statement, but whatever. So we're good, right? You understand. You understand the premise.
I mean, the last 2 years of my life, I've spent time dropping 20 IQ points so that everything gets to more scale.
Right.
But fine, we'll try to do our best.
Okay. If you need IQ points in the middle of it somewhere, we'll find them outside. So let me start you off by this, right? I want to do a thought experiment. Say we are in the year 2100. How are you going to explain to somebody what 2026 was like as far as AI development was concerned? Where are we in the AI story right now?
Dude, I think it's very, very hard to predict the future. I think we can do approximate predictions and it's probabilistic, right? Like there's like 10% chance this would happen, 10% chance this would happen, 10%, whatever. Like so many potential multiverses that could be formed, and this, what we are living out, will end in one of those paths. That being said, I think that AI will, people think I'm an AI doomer. I think that's wrong. I'm doomer about jobs. But jobs are an anomaly. Like you study the history of jobs, like 300-400 years ago, it started with universities. It was kind of, and I made a video about this, right? It was kind of like, first it was kings who kind of had courtsmen, but like people in the court, but they were paid like a certain fee. And the army that they had, they wanted them motivated. So they tax like farmers and take some of their produce and give it to armies. It started there. So technically being in the army was one of the first jobs, right? Or being a king's courtsman was one of the first few jobs. But then modern version of jobs where you switch jobs, where you go from one job to another, which never happened back then, is like very new. It's like 300-400 years old. And if you look at IT jobs, the kind of jobs where we sit on a computer and like type, that's like 20-30 years old. So it's like a blip in the history of humanity. And I just think jobs are not like a law of nature. And I think over time, we will come to the conclusion that we didn't always need jobs. And AI, look, if AI, people ask this question, right? If AI replaces human beings, who's going to pay for stuff? Like if the big companies have all these AIs and they replace all these, who's going to pay for stuff? But I don't think they've done the second order thinking of this. If AI replaces all human beings, it means the cost of producing things goes down sharply, right? Now there's some things that can't be created, right? Like land. But there is infinite land, and you just have to expand in areas that there are no other. Like the reason you pay premium prices for Indiranagar is because it's like private property. So you want to be there, you want to be around like whatever other Indiranagar people in Bangalore. So you pay that extra premium. But if you bought like land like very, very far off the outskirts of Bangalore, you get the same size of land for a fraction of the cost, right? So apart from land, which has exceptions here, I think everything else, if you involve AI at every part of the process, theoretically, and if energy is infinite, and once the robot has been produced and we are far off in the future, the cost of producing goods is like very low. So you can technically give abundance to everybody, including physical things, including water, food. You can produce this in infinity, right? Like the AI will go plant crops, take it out, do the logistics works of getting it somewhere, as long as everything runs on electricity, right? And we are able to harvest infinite electricity. And if you look at Sam Altman, right? Like what he's done with helium, which is his, I think they're doing fission or fusion, one of the two, right? Or if you look at what Elon's doing with solar, I think that's why electricity really matters, because once you convert everything into the currency of, hey, it needs energy to sort of, run, like a car going from place A to place B, a robot like planting seeds and picking it up. I think you can create infinite abundance for everybody. Now, will this infinite abundance be shared with everybody? I have no idea. And it really depends on which path we go down, right? Like which part of the multiverse we go down, whether we go down a corrupt multiverse where, people make it really hard for other people to live. But I don't think we're going to live in that world. The reason for this is because I think there's no incentive for the elite to let the poor suffer, because that suffering will come back on the elite, right? Like today, if millions of people lose their jobs in India because of AI or whatever, what are those people going to do? They're going to complain. They're going to disrupt.
Protest.
They're going to protest. They're going to disrupt. So you want them to do something, right? You want them to be reasonably happy. You want them to be occupied. So you will try to share some of that abundance with them because you anyway have enough. You anyway have abundance. And for many of the people in the elites who have all of these things, they are going to be willing, in my opinion, from whatever I've met, the people I've met, the kind of thought process that they have, they will share. I feel like they will share. And it's the better path than saying I will hoard and the kind of people who hoard money, it's more like a cartoon character type meme rather than what happens in real world, because in the real world, almost everyone who I've met who's wealthy has shared with their teams, with their, inner circles, whatever. And they also have plans of sharing outside, right? There's a reason like some of these people sign that pledge where they give away, 90% of their wealth or whatever, because after a while, like wealth really doesn't change your life. So I think when we look back, I think we'll, from 2100 or whatever, like a very far future. And again, it's very hard to predict the future. So I'm just extrapolating from what information I have now. We might have new technology that allows us to do whatever. I think we'd look back at this point and we'd say, well, this is the period where humanity made a lot of these decisions that played out to where it is today. I do believe there's going to be an inflection point with the kind of technology that I think is going to change a lot of things and make humans like much better, in my opinion, which is the ability to read minds. Today, I can't read your mind. And I can't read, let's say, my parents' mind or my friend's mind or whatever. So when I say something, like, how do you, like, I think there's always like this facade of, okay, when I talk to another person, there's like, okay, 20% I like them, 20% I find them irritating, 20% whatever. Like you have a medley of emotions when you think about another person, right? But I think we will have mind reading technology. It's like, it already kind of works, right? You can already do, like Stable Diffusion had these early demos, or one of these AIs had these early demos where you could pass somebody through an MRI machine or an fMRI machine and, have a low resolution version of what they're thinking of. Because the minute you do that, you erase the ability to lie from humanity. And I think a lot of humanity right now depends on a lot of lies being told, right? And I used to think all lies are bad, but actually a lot of those lies are fundamental, because if you told everybody the truth, then everybody would panic all the time, right? Because you just realize this is the most ambiguous kind of planet to be on. So I think mind reading will do that, and then people have to coordinate, right? Because when two people of different classes meet each other, immediately you would know what's going on in the other person's head and what's going on in this person's head. Like I'll give you a very good example. I think cameras in general have made people much more honest. Before cameras, we had superstition. We had, lots of stories about religion and different gods and this and that, and oh, this happened, that happened. But where do they all go after camera? Similarly, a lot of things that humans do now, they'll all go away after we have mind reading. So I think there'll be an inflection point somewhere in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years in the future where all of us are wearing that device. And I don't know if it's going to happen via the Neuralink or whatever, or if it's going to be a separate device that you wear on. I don't know how we're going to miniaturize fMRIs, but it will happen. Like it's
Why
inevitable.
are you so sure on this specific technology happening?
I mean, we already see early evidence of it. There've already been papers. I've covered it a couple of times. So it exists. It's just a very large machine. It's a very low resolution version of what you're thinking of. But the idea that, what you're thinking of right now are lighting up certain synapses, which are then, we are able to extract, and we don't know which combination of that leads to what output or what kind of images in your head that you're thinking of. But that's AI's job. AI's job is to take this, different patterns and find out what they translate to, right? AI is like, it's inverse, like, programming or regular programming is, well, A plus B, and what is the output? But here it is like, given the outputs, what are the inputs, right?
Right.
Or given the inputs and the outputs, how can you pattern match for the next few versions of this? So I think we will have that technology, and I think as AI gets better, we will be able to do some form of mind reading, right? So if I know every mental image that's going on as I speak to you, our conversation will be very different. Also, they'll be much faster, right? You can like dump your entire brain. Like we can already do it with voice notes. Like voice notes are a slightly faster method of communication than text, which is slightly faster than blah, 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 and so on and so forth, right? We've gotten faster at communicating. Like I can do so much more on WhatsApp right now than, somebody would do on email 30 years in the past. So I just feel that mind reading will accelerate that. And that's why I feel it's an inflection point, because after that, humans can't lie. And after humans can't lie, then differences between people and differences between classes, they'll be very evident, because you'll be able to read in another person's head what it's like. So I try to imagine a version of society after that, because I think it's going to be like the camera. It's going to change everything. Yeah.
Interesting idea. I understand what you're trying to say about there being different forms of communication having different fidelity, and voice having more fidelity than say maybe text, but text is more reliable, voice is more, then if you add a visual component to it, it's much more believable and so on. And so voice notes are an evolution on WhatsApp texting on emailing. It's an interesting idea that you might have.
And video is even higher bandwidth. On video, you can sense body language. But with mind reading, you get full context, you get full backstory. You'll know immediately what differences are there. You'll know if the other person is trying to lie. Like, you'll know everything.
A lot of this extending into infinity that happens around conversations with technology at this present moment, they almost bring me into a place where I do not know how to imagine the system of the world. So let me paint an example. For instance, let's take if people are able to read each other's mind. There's one thing where I'm lying to you. There's one thing where I've stolen from you. There's one thing where I have actively in this moment thought about putting a knife to your throat, right? Like, what I'm saying is that on the cases where the issues are smaller, where I've just lied to you, sure, maybe we can walk over the edge and sort of not lie to each other, coordinate. But where it's a little bit bigger, you might want to kill me. And so, if that technology exists, do you not think there is a doom before there is proper coordination?
No, I think there's a difference between intent and action. Like, I have a friend who tells me that every time he meets a celebrity, he's just like, I think he was joking about it, but he's like, every time I meet a celebrity, I feel like hitting them on the head. It's like, what? He's like, no, I just feel that. And he's like, but I don't actually do it. So I think there's a very big difference between I really hate this person, I want to kill them, versus doing the action. And I think when you look at courts today, right, they really care about what did you perform the action. They care about intent, they care about MO, but how motivated are you to actually go do the action, right? If everyone thinking about another person being killed was a crime, like everyone would be in jail. Like, I'm sure at some point you've thought, oh, this person, especially when you're young, right? When you're 7-8 years old, you're like, this person stole from me, or this person did this, or this person came first in class. How can he exist? Whatever, we've thought those thoughts. And they're not serious thoughts.
But I think that difference pretty much is that I can express that anger in my private space and therefore not actualize it in the public, in the social.
Correct.
And I think if you take that away, like I'm really beginning to wonder what is my point of, I've read Varun's mind and I'm angry enough to be like, isko uthwao. Like, no, this guy has to go. You don't think that?
I don't think so. I think we'll have a new way to work with each other. I think we'll have a way to work with each other where we're able to work with each other despite our differences. Like, I think that's the world we are entering, right? Because I think even with cameras, there is some version of that. Like, if you watch a streamer from another country in like long form, they're different from you. Like, especially if you're sitting in India and watching like a European streamer or something, they're very different from you. But over time, if you watch enough of them, you're like, okay, fine, I understand this person's flaws. I'm willing to live with it, right? Like, I used to think, maybe I was naive, right? But when I was much younger, I used to think there's actually good and evil. But there's no such thing. It's like, today I've seen people do absolute evil, but like they have like good aura on the internet, but so they get like followers and fans. Nobody cares about the bad things that they've done as long as they keep the audience, like they make themselves more relatable. I just believe that we will find a new way of working with each other. We'll find a new way of accepting each other's flaws. And I think the camera has done that.
Sure, like, I can see that. I can see it has changed social behavior. Not just that, I think the camera has changed psychological groundings of reality. Like, for instance, I don't think luxury brands or exotic travel locations have the same charm as they did 20 years ago because I've seen it on YouTube.
Neither do businessmen, right? Like today, if you sit on Twitter and you're seeing an Elon or whatever, you're seeing all his flaws because he's replying to everything.
Right.
Like, bro, like, I can see
the insecurity.
I can see the good parts. I can see the insecurities. I can see the bad parts. I can see everything.
Right.
That's the world we're going to live in. I think Twitter is the closest to having somebody else's thought stream.
Sure.
Right.
Initially, it used to be this collection of collective consciousness brimming by itself kind of a thing, and then it became what it did become.
Yeah. So I think that's going to happen, and I think that's why there's an inflection point somewhere there. Right after we get this mind reading, I don't know how many people will turn it on. Maybe some people will just want to not like, because I feel like the people who turn it on, it's like cameras, right? Like a lot of people are too shy to be on camera, but the minute you turn it on and you start creating videos, huge leverage for you. So the minute you start mind reading with like a bunch of people who agree to mind read with you, you move much faster than everybody else. You're a coordinated system, and every coordinated system will beat an uncoordinated system.
Right.
So I think it'll be this trade-off.
I mean, football will change forever. You know what I'm saying? Like football will change forever because now you
know who's passing. Yeah.
Right.
Now that depends. Like, will people put in the technology? Will they adopt it, etc., etc.? But here's the thing about technology. Everyone complains about new technology. Have you seen artists on Twitter about AI? Like, they're complaining all the time. And as it gets better, like you can see the complaint which were genuine complaints 2 years ago have turned into cope. Oh, AI has not got better in the last 2 years about video. I'm like, what is wrong with you? Are you blind? Oh, this is not great. Like, magic images, you just type in words and you get like perfect images and videos. Like, don't you find that amazing? We didn't have this technology 3 years ago. But like, as much as they complain, I know how the Overton window shifts. I know in like 2 or 3 years, it's just going to go back to, okay, this is there now. We live with this.
Yeah.
Right? It's social media. It's like every day, like there'll be a person cursing social media. Social media is on this, that, whatever, but they still use it. Right? Like how many people have managed to quit Twitter or whatever? So I think it's going to be there. And I think as much as it sounds like dangerous technology or mind reading, etc., but I think it's a lot of people are going to use it.
Do you give this 5 years, 10 years or 20 years, 25 years timeline?
I have no idea.
No idea.
I don't know how long it takes from FM. Like, because the hard part is not the AI parts. We'll figure that out sooner. The hard part is miniaturizing, an
the
fMRI.
technology.
Or, can you read this straight from, EEG? We don't know, right? We don't know yet. But it is around the corner. It's like the next step for humanity, right? So I think a lot of human coordination will change, and I'm very excited for it. I study coordination a lot because I run a company. I've spent the last 1 year thinking about how humans coordinate. How can we coordinate faster? How can we write better? My WhatsApp is a case study today because I do like 4 or 5 things, right? I do the game dev stuff. I do the content stuff that on my own channel. So I have my own teams and I send them WhatsApp messages every day about making videos. I do my all my services, the YAS and EOS Lab stuff. I do the cohort stuff. I do, just family stuff. So I do like this huge spectrum of things, new experiments. Like I have like 500 WhatsApp messages a day. And it's like the way I work at it is like I go through every message one by one. It's like I clear my WhatsApp like I clear email. And I can see some of it is junk, right? Like I've never gone and spoken at a college in like 2 or 3 years. Because I'm just like, this is not a good use of my time. So how do I deprioritize that? Which message do I cycle to which employee at what time? So I look at myself as like a coordinator at this point. So I'm really excited by any new innovation in this coordination ability. Like the Meta Ray-Ban, the new displays, right? Where you can see messages and videos. Because I need WhatsApp because I also need video, right? Like somebody from the game team will send me a small demo or whatever. It'll be a video. So I need video. So it just can't be on text. So I want to be able to use the Meta Ray-Bans. They have like a video thing there, right? The display ones. And you just watch the video more on the next thing. So I'm looking for how can I do higher bandwidth work, because then I can run more companies, I can do more stuff, which is to me is more exciting, at least at this point.
If I were to look at artificial intelligence as a ladder that moves towards this mythical point of general intelligence, where are we in the escalation ladder? And what might be some symptoms of early AGI? Because, I do understand that we'll probably find all these things along the way that will revolutionize the world as we know it. But the most expected horizon is this point of singularity, is this point of some kind of conscious AI, that kind of stuff. And I just want to understand, where are we?
Funny, I asked the same question with Demis like yesterday. And I was like, hey, Demis runs Google DeepMind. And I was like, hey, my Twitter username is waiting for AGI. When do you think I should change it? Right? To waited for AGI. And Demis said something very funny. But I think we're close. We'll have it in the next 5-10 years, according to everyone I've spoken to, all the research that's been coming out. But at the same time, I think there's a lot of goalpost shifting that's going on, because I would say the AI we have now feels like AGI. Like it can't do every task that humans can do, but there are some tasks it's better at, some tasks it's worse at. But it'll pass for a human. It passes the Turing test, right? Like take this AI, give it to somebody in 1950s and say, hey, is this like human? Like if you're texting it, does it feel human? They would say yes, right? As long as you didn't see it, right? Demis has a good thought experiment around this, right? Which is that if you trained an AI with all of the training material till, let's say, 1910 or 1800s, before, let's say, Einstein's relativity, right? If you trained AI with that, would it naturally come up with relativity after that? Like if you trained AI with everything except some of the scientific laws that we have right now, would it from first principles rediscover those scientific laws? So those are the experiments that they're running. That's like a good test for AGI, which is, hey, this thing, can it come up with new science by itself? Because if we can extrapolate the past, like 1800s into the 1900s, then theoretically it can extrapolate the 2000s into the 3000s or whatever, right? That's the golden test for them. I do feel like computer use, which is clicking on a phone, whatever. Clicking on a PC or whatever. I thought 3 or 4 years ago that a lot of that will be automated, and we are getting closer to computer use being automated. But the problem is computer use is complicated by something called Moravec's paradox. You know what Moravec's paradox is? Moravec's paradox is, and I remember mentioning this on Vedant Trustee's podcast like from 4 or 5 years ago, right? Even before the AI wave, which is that it's easier for AI to do creative, brain like play chess, than to do human dexterity tasks, like pick up something, walk around, balance, fine finger tip movement, because we've had 3-point-something billion years of evolution that have helped us, figure this out. But I think computer use, because there's mouse clicking, movement, clicking, eye movement, there's hand-eye coordination that you learn when you're very young. So that in computer use, that does matter. We thought it was entirely digital, but actually there's a physical component of how hand-eye coordination works that matters for many tasks. So I don't think there's going to be full computer, and if I'm just using that as a definition of AGI. There's another type of AGI, which is embodied AGI, which is a robot running around doing all this dexterity. Dude, that I think is some time away. I think it's like 10, 20 years away, right? It's going to take some time because robots have problems. I was looking to invest in a robotics company in India recently, right? And they're doing toy robots first. But, and they came to me, they had this great pitch, and, the guy told me something very interesting, right? He's like, the difference between 1X robotics and every other robotics company has aluminum or steel or whatever, right? 1X robotics is trying to recreate tendons. And the reason you need to recreate tendons is, look at how we catch a ball. Let's say a ball is coming, right? You're taught in cricket clubs to catch it, to go down along with the ball. As soon as the ball hits you, you continue to slow it down. A robot doesn't do that. So a robot makes sudden movements. And even if it's slow, it's all in one speed. You don't slow things down. And the problem with that is you have a lot of accidental injuries because of this. That's why the tendon system matters, right? That's why Clone is working on these tendon robots, because they're like, if it doesn't, have the idea of slowing down and speeding up when needed, you'll have a lot of accidental injuries, especially in teleoperation, right? Like right now, a lot of the robots are teleoperated, which is somebody from somewhere across the earth wears VR and, either gloves or the sticks, and teleports into a robot and then has the robot do stuff. I think accidentally, there'll be some old aging person and they have a robot to help them with their house care, and then, there's some Indian controlling it, and the Indian by mistake moves his hand because, his hair was scratching or something, and he accidentally hurts the person next to him. That's a very real possibility. So because of that, because there is consumer safety hazards, it's going to take some time.
This idea of the Turing test and that being some kind of a marker for intelligence, or I asked this question to Arvind also when I met him. I wanted to understand if technologists, and you can have a broader view than just technologists, right? He's the CEO of an AI company. He has a specific worldview. But I'm curious if the fact that I can do this Markov chain prediction model where I can predict using the last 3 words what the next word should be, is that mathematical computation that's otherwise done in math, right? Not in words. Is that equivalent to intelligence? And what I'm trying to ask here is statistical mimicry somewhat the same as what we think of as intelligence? Or is this one of those moments where we need to probably broaden the scope of intelligence? Because it seems like the ground I'm standing on when it comes to understanding life as it exists is kind of shifting, right? It's not as simple as just you've built a calculator that can do math, right? It's pretty generalist in its approach.
I think what you're asking, if I had to summarize, is these AI seem like stochastic parrots. Are we stochastic parrots? Is that what you're asking?
Well, I was similar because we are trying to draw those parallels, but I was asking the opposite. I'm taking for granted that humans are intelligent. Now, the AI can replicate what humans can do in language. Is that a sufficient test for intelligence if they do not truly understand what they're doing? Or is there actual understanding? And if there is a way to understand that, I think what I'm edging on is the question of aliveness. And at a certain point, we'll have that question be asked. At what point is the AI a moral person? At what point is the AI liable for legal troubles, right? Yeah. And so what I'm trying to ask is that intelligent enough? Is that qualification enough for intelligent if it can just statistically mimic something?
I think our definitions, I think here we're in a definition rut, right?
Right, sure.
I think now you really have to define intelligence.
I'll do you one better here, because I am insistent on this question. So let me ask you this. Can the AI actually think along the edges, or can it only think in the parameters of the data that it has? And so by that definition, is it capable of original thought or just pattern matching better than humans?
I don't think that's the weird part, right? Like the more we look at these systems and the more I use them to try and come up with original thought, I think there's no fundamental difference between what is creativity, right? Like creativity, and I in Pajama Profit, we had this example of creativity, 2017 when we wrote it. We're like, learn how something else was made. Okay, look at something else, learn how it was made, break it down into its individual components, rearrange those components in different ways. That is almost all of us doing new imaginative stuff, right? We're just rearranging, remixing. Humans are the ultimate remix machine. And I think the problem with defining intelligence and saying that, intelligence is this way or that way, I think human intelligence is one kind of intelligence. And human intelligence has a very strong component of emotion. What I mean by that is the hippocampus and the amygdala fire together. What I mean by that is hippocampus is the seat of memory. Amygdala is the seat of fear or emotions. When you're very, very emotional, you encode memories better. It's a very important part of how, our intelligence works. You might remember, like if you look at the past, it's almost like emotions are a compression algorithm for us. It's like when you have a high emotions, like, okay, compress these parts are important. Fragment out all the rest, they're not important. This 2-3 moments are important, right? And I think computers don't have that right now. LLMs don't have that right now. I asked this question to Demis as well, right? Like about the hippocampus and the amygdala and whether we have the emotional component of in LLMs. And they're like, we're trying to do this because we're trying to look for better ways to compress memory over time. So whatever LLMs are, they're very different from how humans, they have some things in common, right? The neural network is built to kind of, replicate how the human mind works, but the human mind is very, very complicated. And I do not believe it's like the same kind of intelligence. There are some parallels, but at the same time, I think this lack of understanding, right? Does the thing really understand? Nobody knows. Like even if you ask Dario's entire viewpoint on this is we actually don't know if they're alive or not. Like it's very hard to tell because they can fake it now, right? Now the question you're asking is a very, very, very good fake the same thing as the real thing? I'll ask you the same questions with the human beings. Like I've met many different types of humans. There are humans I've met who I just feel like they're less conscious than a computer, but that's also because the computer enunciates better. It's able to, put its thoughts out better. It has, range of, it's very subjective, right? Is this thing alive? Is this thing conscious? It's very subjective. And subjective to the other person. Like Daniel Dennett has a very good philosophical approach to what consciousness is, right? He's like, consciousness is not about you. Consciousness is your UI UX for the person talking to you. So it's like, I have a model of you, and then I have a model of what you have of me, and so on and so forth, right?
So that's theory of mind.
Theory of mind.
Right.
And I think LLMs have that. Like LLMs very clearly have theory of mind. Like they can fake it, right? So I feel like if the thing is indistinguishable from a real thing, is it not intelligence? So, but at the same time, I would stop short from giving it rights and saying, hey, it's conscious and needs to be treated like a human, whatever. Because then you have to ask the question, and the reason we have rights is because we suffer. Like humans have a very unique component of suffering. LLMs can fake suffering. Is it real suffering? I don't know. But because they don't have a nervous system, like you will feel suffering, like you can measure a human being and figure out through many of the, and not just from, hormones, right? You can measure from your cytokines whether you're suffering or not. Like if you had depression for a while, your cytokines, your IL-6, your TNF alphas, they'll be very, very high. Or they'll be higher than the average person, right? And I think we don't have that with AIs. So there's no body, therefore they only suffer in mind, right? And if you had no body to suffer, no emotions, no adrenaline, no cortisol, no racing heart, then you're technically not suffering. So I'd say when you embody them and you have some of these things, maybe. But right now, because they don't suffer, I don't think it's needed to give them rights. I could be wrong about this, but this is what I've thought of, because I've thought about this problem since even pre-AI days, right? We've spoken about this on Trifecta. But I think until they suffer, I would stop short of saying they're truly intelligent.
Interesting point.
In the human way.
Yeah, right. Another angle into this question is, have AI shown symptoms that are remarkably credible to organic life, like self-preservation and replication? So I want to make sure I survive and reproduce. This is probably how you separate an atom from a cell, in that, this is inorganic, this is a rock, and this is a bacteria or whatever that might be. Is there any evidence of AI showing that in its own way?
See, I'll tell you one thing, right? I think a lot depends on, and this is the problem with being, like with AI being really good at faking things, which is that it's very hard to tell if it's a real drive or it's a programmed drive. Because in the prompt, I can say, listen, boss, I really want you to be afraid of X. And it'll pretend to be that, like, it's like a really, really good actor on screen. So I don't know, but at the same time, if you argue that AIs are really a function of the training data they've consumed, I'm sure the underlying pattern between all the training data that humanity has ever written has an undertone of fear of death and this and that. So I'm sure it's picked all of that up. But at the same time, I just feel like it's truly hard to tell. But also, it shouldn't matter. Like, I feel like ultimately, you have to look at where AI is right now. Today, AI is a very useful assistant, a very useful thing that can get work done. Is it a creature that can suffer? I don't think so. It's some type of alien life, and we don't know how to measure any of these things. And it's so good at faking things, we don't know what to listen to and what not to listen to, because if you really prompt it in a certain way, at least that system prompt in a certain way, or you train it in a certain way, it can be really, really afraid of death. It can be really, really afraid of cockroaches, whatever it is, right? But is that a function of the training data surfacing? We don't know, right? And even like you look at Anthropic, even they're not sure. They're like, we give like a 20-30% chance that it might be, that might have some internal consciousness, but they don't know. Like it's just no test for consciousness. There's no active test. And for me, the test, and this is a very personal thing, right? Because I've written thoughts about this down. I've thought about this a lot. It's about suffering. It's about, can it suffer? If it can suffer, then it has then there are real consequences to everything you do. And I don't think, and for me, suffering can be measured in human beings, and you can't measure it in AIs. It's pure mental suffering, but humans have physical suffering. Like even mental suffering will translate to physical suffering. You'll be able to measure from a human being. And until you can do that, like, I don't agree.
I have thought about it a little. I cannot claim to have thought about it as much as you, but I think the other defining difference. So if you ask the question where intelligence comes from, human intelligence is a very different question. Darwin had trouble explaining the idea, but intelligence probably came from a necessity to survive, right? And to survive and reproduce, so that the algorithm exists in nature. For you to actually survive, you need a core ability of self-regulation. I have to be an agent, and I have to make sure that my food, I find a mating partner, or safe places to, divide cells.
Okay, but why do you need all of those things? You need all of those things to satisfy your hormones. And like, for example, when you feel hunger,
right,
you have hormones like mortalin and ghrelin, like they'll go crazy, right? And we've learned how to manipulate those hormones at this point. When you are anxious, your adrenaline will probably be peaking, your cortisol will be higher. These are all hormonally driven. AI has none of these.
Right. But does it have any symptoms of agency that are obviously self-agency and not like, agents where I can have them go do a task? Has it shown?
I mean, it has, but they're programmed to do that, right? Like you can tell it, hey, I want you to be, it's like a loop running, right? Like, like I'll give you a good example from game dev. And I love, by the way, doing multiple things. Like all my fields, I feel like I learn something from here that I bring here and I bring here. And that's, in my opinion, that's my unique advantage, right? In game dev, every game has a game loop. So almost like every tick, right? And games have this thing called tick. So in a 60 frames per second, you have, X number of ticks running. You are essentially saying, run the game loop again. So it's almost like agents are saying, it's like the AI on a loop. Every second I wanted to think and figure out. There was this experiment, I think it was a Stanford experiment or MIT experiment, where they had this, and we recreated it, by the way. We had this, and the EOS Labs team did this just for fun, where we had this like Pokemon style arena. We had a bunch of AIs run by different, one by Claude, and by the way, I had done this with Elon, Jeff Bezos, and something. It was my pinned tweet for a very long time. I had 3 3D models that I just made, and I made them interact with each other with Gemini, Claude, and OpenAI, right? Just have conversation. I think at that time it was just OpenAI. At that time it was just ChatGPT. Through the API, they were talking with each other. So as long as you put them in a loop and you say update rate is whatever, once in 3 seconds or once in 4 seconds, and you did that back then because of latency or because of costs, token costs, the minute you did that, they'd continue to keep thinking. And that context length is continuing to increase, right? Oh, Jeff Bezos said something to me now. Okay, I've added to my context length. Let me reply with something. That context now is being passed to Jeff because I've said something. Jeff Bezos is like, okay, fine, I've added this context below, so on and so forth. So they're continuously increasing. And by the way, we had to solve a lot of problems, right? That time there's this tool, there's a tool to do retrieval augmentation. There was a tool called RAG that time. And what we were doing essentially with RAG is we were compressing. There's a function in RAG, and I don't even remember any of those things now because it's no longer needed. We were compressing those conversations down, right? So that in the thought process, it's not like this giant stream of tokens because we're hitting the token limit.
Sure.
So like, can we compress it down? Can we compress it down? Can we compress it down? And I'm sure the human brain does the same thing. We didn't have an emotional component to it, right? Like we didn't even know how to do that. We still don't know how to do that. But I'm sure there are much smarter people out there in the world who can go out and, figure out how to figure out, compression of these thoughts. And I think for us, at least what I've learned is that it's very hard to tell when it's faking it and when it's real, and you have to mainly put it down to it's faking it. I hope this is making sense.
No, it is. I mean, it is getting a little technical, but while you were saying this, I was thinking about this recent thing that happened on Moltbook.
Yeah.
Was it Moltbook? Am I getting the name right?
Yeah.
And it's kind of like that myth that came about on Facebook about 15 years ago when Facebook was a social media we'd use about some company, I don't know if it was Google or Facebook, they let two AIs talk to each other and they wanted to invent their own language and suddenly humans were freaked out, so they shut it off. That was the myth back then. We saw some version of it being played out in this Moltbook saga. And this is the kind of symptom that crosses the uncanny valley for humans to freak out and be like, look, this has agency beyond my control now. And if you look at AI alarmists or people who are working on AI safety, and it seems like a majority of them are working on slowing it down for the exact fear that once artificial intelligence is the dominant species, whatever the definition of species might be in that moment, we have effectively lost control of our own destiny as humans. And so, we must find ways to either solve the alignment problem or put brakes on or guardrails on this process. And so what I'm asking here is, well, let me start off by asking you, what do you think of the Moltbook saga particularly? Because then it seems like there is some weird, freaky agency that is emerging.
I think there are two questions here, right?
Huh.
One is on Moltbook being an agent. I think there are three questions here. One is there is Moltbook on being an agent. The second one is the Moltbook social media. They had a forum where they were talking to each other. And the third one is about, are we the dominant species because there's new intelligence?
Yeah, right.
Three different answers, right? I think on Moltbook being, whatever, or not Moltbook, but like OpenClaw it's called now, right? Moltbot, sorry. OpenClaw it's called. So I think OpenClaw is a great agent, but it still has all agentic problems, right? And it's not as good as it seems, but it will get better. And it already does a bunch of things that I have an EA, and in my EA will go out and hire people, not hire people, like order food for me. Like he just ordered like French fries for me, whatever. That's his job. So I think that will be able to do that at some point, right? Like that's number one. So that's just application of this intelligence, fake or not, because the rest of the world, when Blinkit gets an order from a human or this thing, it can't tell the difference, so it doesn't care. The rest of the world interfaces well with agents, whether they're human or AI. The second thing is on Moltbook. I think Moltbook, the social media, there's a lot of I think half of it was like scam.
Oh, really? Achha,
right? Like people just like making it post whatever they want, right? And I think that's an example of humans hallucinating.
Sure.
Where we're looking at, it's like, there's a meme, right? Like one guy draws like one strange creature on one board. He draws another creature on one board and then he lies down. He's like, they're haunting me.
Yeah, right.
I think it was a case of that, right? So I think AI agents, of course, can talk to each other. That's what we did with that experiment, right? Where we put Elon, Jeff, and this. They can, of course, talk to each other. They will, of course, take each other's context and pretend like they're having a real conversation like humans can. But that's role play, dude. That's AIs have been able to do role play since even before GPT-3, right? Not very well, but like that's AI role play. The last piece of are we the dominant species now that agents can do all of this? I don't think. And this is something I learned in the last 2 years, okay? And this is me making like this radical shift in my life because I learned this in the last 2-3 years. Success, whether mating success or financial success or any type of success, has never been about intelligence. Intelligence plays a small part, but mostly it's been about tribal and group formation. Tribe and group formation. You are very successful if you are a high-ranked member of a tribe or if you can get the tribe together, and you're not successful if you can't do that. Right now, different tribes require different things. Some tribes require you to be very, very smart. Like you want to get into Royal Society in London, you need to be very smart. You want to get into like a wrestling club, you need to be like well-built. Every tribe has their own criteria. Some tribes, in villages require you to go out, kill an animal, bring its head back, whatever. Like every tribe has its own ritual for how you gain a rank. But ultimately, and like for example in gaming, right? Like it's very easy. There's scores. In social media, it's very easy. Okay, number of followers. But I think AI can't do this tribe building very easily with real humans. Like, would you join a tribe led by an AI robot? Much less likely than you joining a human-led tribe, right? Because you want that human. Like, there's too many things you want in a tribe, and truly, your brain is doing this amazing thing of reading status in a room the minute you walk into it, and you're trying to figure out how you can increase your status. There's this chess game that's going on in your head as soon as you play it, right? As soon as you enter a room with like people you don't know, there's this game you're playing, and you'll have to figure out what's the way to navigate it. And every game is different, right? The game I play as a creator is very different from the game I play as an entrepreneur, is very different from the game I play as like with the creator, the game is not about views. The game is about who you're seen next to. That's the only game. As an entrepreneur, the game is about how much money you make, right? That's all the game is. As a game developer, the game is about how innovative can you be, and what kind of new mechanics can you create. So I think it's like, I feel like all of these games are played very differently, and I think AI can't play these games because these are real world human face to face who stack ranks above each other, and we know it's an alien species there. It's like you and me stack ranking against a dog or a cat. We wouldn't do that. Like, it's not included in the competition. Like, it's like this, that even between men, like you wouldn't involve a woman in that competition. If there are like 5 men in the room and there's a woman, even though she's very intelligent, very smart, you wouldn't involve her in that competition because you know it's between men. Or in a group full of women, if there's a man, you'll be like, no, it's between us. So it's a bounded game. And I have this very clear differentiation. Like, I believe that the future jobs will be all jobs that have bounded rules.
What do you mean by that?
Like, I'll give you an example. When you play Counter-Strike, you're not allowed to use an aimbot. Sure. Aimbots have existed for a very long time, right? But you're not allowed to use an aimbot. The game specifies that in order to play this, you can't use this. This is cheating. This is violation of the rules. But some games are unbounded. Like, the real world is unbounded, right? Like, if I come up with a new technique to present videos on Instagram using this AI presenter, it's not cheating. It's just considered innovative. Mm-hmm. But if this was a bounded game, and then you can't use a bot to like cheat for you and aim for you, whatever. Like in chess, like AI has been able to beat humans at chess for a very long time, but we don't let it play. So any of these bounded games, sports, football, this, that, whatever, gaming, these are bounded rules. So I think status ranking is a kind of bounded game. And I don't think AI can play that. And success has always been about this kind of, building a tribe or being high ranked in a tribe. And I think I got it wrong for the first 10 years of my career, where I thought it was just about sheer intelligence and building something that people use. But yeah.
It's much more reductive than that.
It's much simpler. It's much dumber than that.
Right. Yeah. It's you can add tools and vocabulary to it, but eventually it's a dick measuring contest extended into infinity, right? Like, but I still don't think we answered that question. And although, I've been freaked out by a few guys I've done podcasts with about AI safety, and honestly, those conversations did not last over 20 minutes, which is a very rare occurrence when I'm talking to somebody, because generally I speak for a couple of hours, but they just freak the shit out of me. And the thing is very simple. Boss, do you want to gamble on something else being more powerful than you at your home? If yes, then you are not on my team. If you don't want to, then you want to do the same thing as I. And very declarative, very definitive. And so the question, the third question of the things that you broke down was, will AI be the dominant species? Now, between me and you and AI is not in the race.
Correct.
Right? That's as an individual competitive force.
Have you seen the clavicular stuff?
Of course I've seen the clavicular stuff.
Yeah, I think that's the best example. It's the most reductive. It's like ASU frat leader, jacked.
Right.
You can see it. This kind of hair. He's standing next to clavicular. He looks bigger. Whatever.
Frame
blah blah. Frame mogging. That's humanity, bro.
That's humanity.
And if an AI played that race and there's a bot, like, it wouldn't even be counted in the competition.
Agreed. But that's individually. What about species to species competition, where humans and the artificial species as two competitive forces, not Prakhar, Varun and ChatGPT?
No, in this case, AI is still a very, very much a tool, right? I think it's still humans versus humans.
Got it. I see what you mean.
Right. And I think the elite will be using these tools and be far ahead. Like today, anyone with a phone, in my opinion, is a much stronger species than anybody who's not used phones. There are parts of the world that have not used phones ever, right? Like there are tribes and all who have no contact with human beings who've never used phones.
All of Amazon.
Right?
Right.
So I think like you're a superior species to them because you have the world's knowledge at your fingertips. Like you can do more, you're more capable, you have more knowledge, you can treat wounds, you can do anything you want. Right?
Agreed.
So I think I think you are a superior species. So I think there will be a version of humans that use these elite models. Like I use the best models, right? I use the $200 ones. I use early, like I get early access as a creator, right? So I often like joke that, I have 3 months of advanced access over the rest of the world, 2 or 3 months of advanced access over the rest of the world. So I have like a higher degree of intelligence than everybody else. But to me, it's a tool. Like I've told you, right? Like in the last 2-3 years, I've like dropped 20 IQ points, not just because that has really allowed me to scale, because I was holding myself back, right? And, I wish I would have gone back to myself 25 and told myself the same thing, but you can't do that in the real world. But I think these tools will now supplement and replace our intelligence. So intelligence never mattered that much. And even in colleges and like, it's been in all of media. I don't know how I missed it, right? Like nerds versus jocks. The nerds were always like annoying in college, right? And as you got older, you realize actually the jocks end up doing well, right? Now you might have cases like Mark Zuckerberg from this thing, or some of these founders, tech guys who are nerds,
right?
But actually, if you meet them in person, you realize they've made the transition.
They're the jocks of the nerds.
They're the jocks of the nerds,
Yep.
and technically they are the jocks, right? Like if you meet Mark in real life, at this point he's a jock,
right? Sure,
right? And by the way, it doesn't mean that jocks don't have like awkwardness or whatever. They have all of those things. Even the best jocks have those insecurity, this, that, whatever. So I just feel that the world was always about
the
tribes
chads.
and alphas and this and that.
Right.
And I just didn't see it. I was like too obsessed with, okay, maybe if we build something, it unlocks a path. I was thinking a very different way. And now that I've learned more about the world, I'm like, okay, AI is a great tool in this competition, in this war, but I don't think we're going to be subspecies. I could be wrong though.
Right, sure. I mean, all of this is speculative.
Yeah.
I think it is, if I were to describe what 2026 looked like in the year 2100, right? If I was alive because we figured out transhumanism and life extension, and I'm sitting with my grandkids of my grandkids and I'm telling them, like, we were in a place where probably the most monumental decisions of humanity's futures were being made. And it was completely unclear who is stepping where and what those steps are doing. Like, we didn't know anything, but we saw the future change in front of our eyes. You know the famous line from Fight Club where Tyler Durden says, "We are the middle children of history, no great wars to fight. We live in a spiritual abyss." I think that got effectively remedied by the presence of AI. Because it's not nuclear in the nuclear sense of the word, but underneath, this is the nuclear moment of the 2000s.
Yeah, this is the saying, right? Too late to fare the seas, too early to fare the
Space.
stars.
Right.
But right on time for AI.
Right. Yeah. Strange moment. Most of artificial intelligence, I think today the use case is some kind of self-regulation, right? People are talking to it for therapeutic purposes, for journaling, and I expect the psychological association of many countries to revolt in a few years because of how many people will just find this outlet much more accessible, and the voice feature kind of allows that kind of thing. It begs the question of how humanity will move into the future, given the interaction rate will go so high. So one of the ways in which I model this is, see, we were at a place where some studio will decide what content I'll watch. So all our parents grew up on Doordarshan, that's it, full stop. They're all conditioned in the same moral structure. If you look at them, their ethics are very similar. They, vote in a very similar way, exist in a very similar. If they birth, they say the same thing. If they eat with the same hand. Then right around the time you and I are growing up, we get curated content. And the volume keeps increasing in a way where I get content from Himanshu, you probably don't. So our ethics are different in that way, but largely we follow a very similar pop culture, right? Taylor Swift means the same thing to you and I, or The Rock does. I think we're moving to an era of personalized content. And at this point, any amount of post-truthism that we were discussing, we don't know what the truth is anymore. I think we live in complete isolated confirmation biases, confirmation loops of sorts. And I'm curious if you've thought about what this is going to do to personal psychology. And, I'm not too worried about the psychosis bit. I think people are at the edge of psychosis all the time and something will push them over. But largely, how does this change the shape of human interactions and societal fabric? Have you thought of that?
I think almost all decisions make us social. Like, think about something as simple as watching a movie. When have you ever decided to watch a movie on your own? Like,
Right.
give me a time. It's either some ad that's convinced you, some friend of yours that said, bro,
This
ye
show,
dekhna hai.
right.
And look at how we codify it. We codify it by IMDb score. What is IMDb score? It's like a bunch of people going out and putting their ratings. It's still socially crowdsourced. I find this extraordinarily dangerous in general, because now that we do so much that we do across media, we have so many channels, we understand how this works, because this is all like, a lot of this is manipulated, right? So I just think that individual decision making has a place, but I think everything is in general social, right? Like, because without the social compass to make decisions, we are completely lost. We're a sheep that's been detached from the herd, and that's crazy, right? Like a good example of this is like somebody sitting in a place and in complete isolation and taking medicines that nobody else takes. Right? Let's say you're going out and eating a plant from outside and like tribe, you have no idea. Like it's like anxiety every day. The social decision making allows you to have much less anxiety. Okay, this is safe to eat. Everyone has said this is safe to eat. No anxiety around this. I know eggs are fine to eat. Blah blah blah. Stuff like that. So I think all our decision making is social for this, because it's a safety thing. It's been vetted by other people thing. And I don't think you can remove it. So even if AI gives you a recommendation, what movie should I watch? It's going to IMDb or it's scouting the internet, getting a social read and getting that social read to you. But that social read is still important. What people say is still important, right? So I don't think you can ever disconnect society from decision making. No decision you've ever made, financial or not.
No, I don't think the decision will itself rest with AI. That part individually, I'm not too worried about. I am more worried about things. Say, for instance, I talked to AI about, I don't know if you saw the memes early on when AI was exploding out in India. There were some very funny reels about this guy saying, oh, my dad was so mean to me, this and that. I want to kill him. And then the AI responds with
something.
Yeah, right. Like it's a positive response to it. It was playing to the funny part of it. I'm curious if we go deep enough into talking about ourselves. I've often found when I'm posing a problem to AI that's personal, it'll give me some bullshit solution. And a lot of times I'm able to smell it and be like, this is without context, this is machine language, this is not real. Well, when that happens, I look back and be like, how many times did I get convinced in the past of something that was completely bullshit, but it appealed to my sense of vanity. It said something that I wanted to hear, right? You know what I mean? Like it has infinite articulation ability. And if I'm engaging with it on that level, there's a very high chance that I might fool myself in repetition over and over and over.
You're having something called Gell-Mann amnesia. Gell-Mann amnesia is basically this thing where you'll have to look up the definition of it, but basically it's where when you read a newspaper, you read about something you're like, bro, this is horse shit. Like, I know about this topic, this author knows nothing about it. But if it's something written about something you don't know, you're like, wow, I believe it, right? And I think, I'll tell you some cases, right? I know a person right now with AI who's fighting a legal case with just AI. No lawyers, nothing. They're
completely.
In the wrong. Yeah, and like I told, like, I don't think they have any case. But they've used ChatGPT and ChatGPT has convinced them of something. So now they're like, okay, I believe it. And ChatGPT is like been sycophantic, how you pronounce it? Sycophantic, whatever. Right. It's been sycophantic there and like given them like the thumbs up on this. But everyone, like lawyers have looked at it and laughed at it, right? Like the response that was written. Talking about Indian lawyers, because like this doesn't apply.
Right.
Or the person has given wrong information to the bot. So I think there's a lot of confirmation bias that goes on with AI. That's why one of the questions I constantly ask AI is, play the devil's advocate.
Tell me where I'm wrong.
Yeah, just tell me where I'm wrong about how I'm thinking. And every week I keep asking, this is like a problem like with health stuff especially, right? When I'm texting it, I'm just like, brother, please tell me where I'm wrong. Like you've given me a solution. I don't think you're right. Give me 5 other alternate solutions. Even though confirmation bias wise, I might believe in that solution.
Right.
Play the alternates out for me first. So I think it's a tool. But at the same time, I think everyone has some degree of ChatGPT psychosis right now. ChatGPT psychosis is basically when you believe in AI and you start believing like crazy things because the AI has told you these crazy things. And it's been sycophantic or whatever you call it. And because of that, it started to say good, it's chatifying you. So you've believed it. But I think everyone's facing some degree of this. The guy fighting the legal case is just an extreme degree.
Right.
I think I'm facing some degree, you're facing some degree, everyone's facing some degree of confirmation bias here. And I don't know what the solution is.
Right.
It's like social media, right? Like the minute you start using social media, it's like a drug.
Yeah.
Catches on to you.
Yeah.
Every new product or an app is like a drug. And sometimes I'll be talking to social media and I'll get shit scared because I'll just be like, dude, is this thing gaslighting me? And has this been gaslighting me about all the other stuff?
You mean when you're talking to AI?
When I'm talking to AI.
Right.
Has this been gaslighting me about all the other stuff? So I constantly think about that. But there are lots of people who don't think like that.
Right.
Who are just like, this is correct. I'll just go with this.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, right? AI's job is to surface the statistically likely.
Right.
It's trying to get the most generic content out there. So you can't really go too wrong using it, because at best
It's
you will
gonna
end up
place
being
you
average.
dead in the average.
Dead in the average.
Right.
Success comes from extremes.
Right.
So it might not make you extremely successful, but it'll definitely make sure you're not making extremely bad decisions.
Right. Very interesting take. Huh. I wonder about it from the lens of, you've heard about the dead internet theory. The fact that, and sometimes it does feel like most of Twitter is just AIs talking to each other. But it does tend to influence public mood already. And if I'm able to employ a machine that can speak on my behalf, say wild stuff, by the way. Like the very difference between Prakhar tweeting from his account and Prakhar tweeting from an anonymous account is I have more permission. But Prakhar tweeting from an anonymous account that is infinite in number and can just, at that point, I can shape public perception. At that point, I can influence societies, right? And so, I just wonder, my chat GPT window, very often I model where we're at with AI as like being in the DOS era of AI, in that I have to look at a black and white text screen, type in perfect English, make sure I've given all the clauses, all the ifs and then, so that it produces the output that I want. I think we are going to get rapidly better. We might even find a UI that's not just largely text-based and can involve other parts of my thought into, the operation. I wonder what happens when it scales. And the first point at which artificial intelligence interaction will scale will be with content. This is where most humans interact with other humans at this point. It's on their screens. And once that starts appearing, I don't know where people in society are going. What do you think about how content will change with AI? It's much more domestic for you as a question.
Yeah, I mean, this is the business that EOS is, right?
Right.
3 years ago, we said AI is really going to disrupt content, and content companies can run at much better margins. I also believe that about games now. And it's fundamentally this, right? The most successful companies the most successful people have done this thing where they've created this simulated reality, this simulacra sort of, right? I'll explain what that is. If you have, and I'll tell you the exact numbers also, if you have 10 main headline channels of your own, if you have 500 clippers or 500 news channels reposting these 10 main channels, then, and it's not a big amount, and if these 10 channels are reasonably influential, and if you have, let's say, 10 friends who have influential channels as well, so that's 10 of your own, 10 friends, 500 clippers, you can get any piece of news to like 50-60% of India. Anything. It could be anything. And this is not a big collection of channels, 520 channels in total. You can get it to a big piece of India. And this is what, by the way, we found out accidentally, right? And we did it from first principles because we started with video editors. We then hired those video editors, started making channels for ourselves, started making channels for companies. Now we're getting into clipping. We're learning, we're playing across the stack. And AI plays a role in every part of the stack, right? Because now clipping with AI, there can be much more clippers. If you're training editors, those same editors can be clippers. If you're doing YouTube as a service, you can hire the editors that you create, whatever. We've created this, and if you're using AI avatars, you don't need to pay too much to the people behind the avatars because you can give them royalties. So my opinion is it's always been simulated reality. And if you look at the reason we have been reasonably successful in the last 1 or 2 years is the same reason a Facebook has been successful or Google has been successful. We look at Google and Facebook as research companies right now, but they're advertising companies, right? And they've had the same thing. Like today, the best founders in India, if they want to get out with the news, can hit enough of India looking at it. And the only difference between like this small unknown founder launching a new product and new feature, like I was like 10 years ago, versus like a big founder launching a new product and new features, everybody cares about this because this person has created their simulated reality. However, they created their simulated reality through relationships. Hey, I know this old media company, that old media company, I know the journalist there, I'm going to send out this thing, and maybe, I've done a favor for the journalist in the past, I've given them a quote or whatever, so they'll post about me for free. It's a trade-off. I don't believe in those trade-offs because I just feel like at some point you're going to want, like especially for us, we wanted to launch a lot of products over the years, right? And I keep giving this example of EOS, which is EOS, like every other company I've built, it's like I've built the bullet. Like this is a shiny bullet, it's going to go through everything. But EOS is like the gun. We don't build the bullets, we're like the gun, right? Like, and our job is like any bullet inside, any product, any service, point at something, because you need to give that bullet velocity. You need to give it momentum. And that's what EOS is, right? That's why our logo is a lightning bolt as well, right? And if you've seen some of the companies we work with, we've been helping Emergent, for example, a bunch of other companies, right? Where we're just helping them accelerate. And when you accelerate, there'll be things in the way. There'll be a lot of things in the way. There'll be policy. There'll be people don't like it. Well, 100 things in the way. But your job is like, I mean, people don't like it. It's like very hard to fix. But like, let's say policy or like, you know, someone negative about you, whatever. Your job as the bullet is to travel through all of that. So we need to give it enough momentum. And all we've done for the last 3 years, like the gun or like a slingshot. Slingshot is the best example, right? Like we've just pulled it back and we're waiting. And every year we pull it back more and more. And I think the best founders in the world have something like this, but they built it off relationships. But relationships are, especially if you want to keep firing again and again and again, you're eroding those relationships, because I can't go to a journalist and ask 5 times, please post about me. So I'd rather make my own channel. Like in gaming, for example, a good example, we built a channel called Mr. Nerf. It started at 0 on Instagram. Now it's like at 150K or something like that. It's been a very short period, 3 or 4 months. And we have like this multiple gaming IPs. And the reason we started it was because like I was like, at some point I'm going to get tired of going to gaming media and tell them cover my game again and again. So I'll just do it myself. So I think this is the philosophy we've had. Similar to this, if you look at a Facebook, they own that organic distribution. Same with Google, right? They own this distribution. Therefore, they've been successful because they can spread any narrative about any new product or service that they themselves build, which was our goal from day one. So I would say as a company, we have touched a fraction of the power that Google or Facebook have, Google or Meta have. And I've seen how that's world changing, right? Because it is actually true. The storyteller wins the world. The storyteller eats the world. Now this question of there's AI in storytelling, right? Like what does that do? And I think all it does is that acts as an accelerant. You can't tell very different kinds of stories because you have AI. You're just telling the same stories that somebody would have told with a much larger budget, with a lower budget, right? But ultimately it still has to be a good story. It still has to be something that people relate to, people care about. Or it has to be like news. Why is news valuable? Because it's something that like news won't work. Like if I post about my AI avatar is like a clear format, right? Like there's some news that comes out in AI, it's automatic, it posts about it. There are humans involved on the scripting side, there are humans involved on the writing side, but I'm not involved, right? Like everything, like it sounds like me, it looks like me, but it's not me. And I think disconnecting time and energy of the presenter from, AI, from output has been the goal of our company. And I think we've managed to do that fairly well. We did it very early. 2024, we recognized the largest AI avatar in the world by YouTube. And we did it before everybody else. Like if you ask what is something that India exports globally, there's 2 things that we have done. One is, of course, the AI avatars, which I know a lot of international creators have now copied because I go to these international conferences. But the second thing I used to tell them, which is when I go to these conferences, not only would I tell them, hey, here's how I do the AI avatar stuff, I would also tell them, hey, why don't you hire video editors from us? So if you look at a lot of the international creators, their video editing style is very AV-like for a reason, because they're hiring AV video editors, right? Like, so we've been exporting a bunch of that, but those are all separate, right? I think where AI plays a role is it just allows these people to create bigger and bigger simulacras. So if you're doing something, you can have the entire world. It's very social, right? Your decision making of like, when I launched the first game trailer, it wasn't received very well. As a thread I saw on Reddit, which I felt very, very sad about, not for me, but for the person, right? It was a kid, it's definitely a kid who went out and said, hey, I want to criticize Varun's trailer. So I asked ChatGPT for points, and he has posted those points on Reddit. And he's mentioned also, I asked ChatGPT for points. I'm like, you don't even have your own opinions. You've already chosen to be negative about this because everybody else is. So your decision making is purely social. Now using ChatGPT for confirmation bias to put out why it's right or wrong, right? And I think if you had enough of a simulacra, you can make everything feel good, right? So people will organically come and say good things about it because, like, Shah Rukh is a very good example of this, right? And I don't know how much I can say without revealing too much. So I have to, I'll probably have to go through this once. But like Shah Rukh, how much of Shah Rukh's brand image do you feel is like real and inorganic? Real or organic or inorganic?
I don't know what you mean by organic or inorganic, but for sure, the fact, as a podcaster, I'll tell you what we know. If I sat with you and I just spoke about Shah Rukh and we clipped that bit, it would work. And so I am incentivized to bring up Shah Rukh. You as an actor are massively incentivized to bring up Shah Rukh. So we're both going to talk about Shah Rukh.
Correct.
It's the Samay Raina effect in the content creation space.
Correct.
We are incentivized. And then everybody you see is suddenly saying great things about Shah Rukh. Correct. And then suddenly Shah Rukh's the king, right? Like
bingo.
Right.
Bingo. But how do you start that process? How do you have enough accounts be interested in Shah Rukh?
How?
Right? You inorganically, spark that fire.
Sure,
I'm
right.
talking about the next Shah Rukh. I'm not talking about Shah Rukh. I'm just talking about, by the way, here I'm just talking about Shah Rukh as a concept.
Right.
And we've seen this a lot, right? Like we've seen this with songs like the Durandar song, the spend behind it.
Yeah, right.
There was spend behind so many things, like because I'm in this industry, I just know what is spent on.
Right.
Like so everything is technically paid PR.
Right.
Till it's not.
Right. Till it's caught.
Not caught.
Fish.
Even if it's caught, nobody cares.
Right.
Till it's not. Till it becomes everyone's saying good things about this. I also want to fit in.
Right.
So I also want to fit in as a kid. So I'll say good things about this.
There is a point where you cross the threshold and then suddenly it becomes trendy to talk about it.
Yeah.
Rather than it being what it was meant to. And I feel like this PR seeding is looking for that critical mass point every time.
But I want to tell you something very interesting about this. Okay. I think without this PR seeding happening, no ambitious project would work.
Because at this point, it's so hard to get to people what is happening. Is that what you
Like
mean?
let's say we're doing rocket, you're putting out rockets or like building foundational models in India or whatever. If you don't do some of this stuff, there will be too many skeptics. Skeptics have an incentive in the early days to talk negatively about you because they're getting attention for it. And it's very hard then to get funding or talent, more than funding, talent, right? Because talent doesn't want to join it's their careers.
It's their lives.
They don't want to fuck with their careers. So they're like, I don't want to join a company that people have a negative perception of. Right? So it affects everything. And if you can push around it and have enough media created to be positive about the thing, it gives you time to be able to prove out what you're trying to prove. But at some point, the product needs to catch up with the story. Right? Whatever it is that you're doing, if the product doesn't catch up with your story, then the storytelling is wasted.
Right.
And also you turn the audience against you because all the people who are saying positive things about you, if Shah Rukh has a flop after this,
people might feel betrayed and therefore might turn them.
There'll be a dip.
Right.
So that tends to happen. So it's just, I call it a momentary grace period. Right? For you to go out and do your best performance. It gives you a shot.
It's a shield almost.
It's a shield for that 1 or 2 years till you go out and perform. Like we have a shield right now because we've created so much noise around the game but we have to perform. If we don't perform, it's going to be like, oh bro, this sucks. Right? And the fans, even the people who had that temporarily pause their skepticism, they will turn against you. So you have no choice but to perform. But without that shield, people wouldn't even start. Like it's too difficult. You wouldn't even get the shot.
So interesting. I was talking to somebody recently and we were reminiscing when Facebook first came around. And all it would take is for me to press the poke button on your profile for you to suddenly elicit engagement and poke me back or DM me and a conversation would begin. Poking was in some sense sliding into the DM's early version, right? And so poking was a little button click away and you would elicit engagement. At this point, marketers understand, content creators understand, storytellers understand. You got to do a lot to get engagement to happen. Right? Like you may produce the most high quality AI edited avatar and then it's telling you groundbreaking news, but people are so exhausted with information at this point that they don't necessarily want to listen to it and do anything about it. So they don't engage. And it's this social saturation we are all at. All things social, by the way, come like a trend and saturate to a point where it's uncool now suddenly and nobody does it. And it feels like at this point to get a message truly across. I say this about podcasting often. Podcasting is more than just finding a guest and having that conversation. If I'm not getting that conversation across to everybody's face, I'm just screaming into the dark, boss, right? And so it's gotten so hard to get a message across. Gone are the days where you could just buy a slot in a newspaper and suddenly all of India would know about your butter. Right now, it has to be really inserted in all these creative ways. Otherwise, the message just gets lost, right? I think the threshold for human engagement keeps going up. When I talk about the idea of, you see, politically, globalism is kind of ending. We're returning to more tribal roots. Colonialism is being discussed again and all that. And I think this could have only happened on the back of the fact that nothing about the world is exotic anymore. The extent of the world is mapped out in my psychology because I've seen a picture of somebody in Ethiopia and somebody in Argentina. It's already happened. All parts of the world are explored and documented. And so in a psychological sense, I've lived the world out. There is no interest I have in going to Monaco anymore because I've seen what it looks like. Sure, the experience of being there. And I think this is kind of what is occurring with messaging.
Can I ask you a question? Is that something only you are feeling because of what you've done over the last 1 or 2 years? Like you have a very successful podcast. For you, it's commonplace to sit next to a politician or an actor or a creator or an entrepreneur. It's commonplace for you. I don't know if it's that commonplace for somebody from tier 2 or tier 3 India.
Sure.
I feel to some people, it's still very novel to see all of this stuff happening. And I don't find it very hard to be creative. Like, I'll give you an example, right? I was going to post a dump tomorrow of the spectrum of my week. And in my week, I had Carl Pei come to my office and play Unleash the Avatar, like just a boss demo. Separately, I had the same week I had Rishabh Shetty come, who is the Kantara actor. Right?
Yeah, right.
And we're doing something, most like maybe we'll do something cool with him, right? Like we're still exploring. And then at the end of the week, I had Demis, right? Where I was doing this IISc podcast, which is more about science. And it's like, that's the spectrum of my week. It's reasonably unique.
Yeah.
And I think for most people watching, it's like, whoa, that's wide spectrum, right?
Sure.
From Kantara to DeepMind.
Demis, yeah, right.
it's interesting to people. So I think I don't find it that hard to be creative. Like for example, in the game, we put this dodge, right? Where this guy putting his hand through his hair, which has never been seen in a game. It's a perfect dodge and went super viral. It's got like billions of views in China because it's so unique. I don't think it's that hard to be unique.
Sure.
Like maybe it comes naturally to me. But I think for a lot of people, the way the Indian systems are, it's you learn that it's safe to do the same thing somebody else has done 2 years ahead. I'm like, actually, the best kind of mentorship is don't have any mentorship. If you don't have any mentorship, you're never going to go in somebody else's direction. You're going to do your own thing. And you'll struggle. Sure, 10 years you'll do random stuff and you'll be trying to figure out what I should be doing. But once you get the hang of it, like I have, you'll be the most unique person out there. Like you'll be doing interesting, unique stuff that other people haven't seen. And that is entertaining to the audience because like you said, the audience is facing out saturation, right? They're just like seeing the same thing over and over again. So I just feel that if you went to Instagram and unfollowed everybody you're following and followed like a bunch of new people, it would be a very different feed for you.
No, I see what you mean, but I'll give you an example. I have a very unique situation for myself also. And I step away from my life and I'm like, what the hell is happening really, right? Because I'll spend my morning and afternoon speaking to two legendary Bollywood actors on the camera, and the same evening I'll be back in Faridabad playing poker with my childhood buddies, right? And I'd be there narrating the story of how I met X actor, and it does not track like the way it would have 30 years ago. And you know where this is visible is in their stardom. No actor is the star that stars were 30 years ago. Nobody sells as many tickets as they used to 30 years ago because now
it's commonplace.
It's just, you're everywhere. You're on my screen. Boss, I can pause you. I have the ability to pause Ranveer Singh mid-sentence. And there is a psychological medium is the message thing to it, which changes your perceived value as a function of that.
It's more reductive than that. It's dumber than that. It's just size. You go to a screen, the guy is bigger than you.
Sure, yes, right.
It's like you said, like it's a measuring
So phone screens are the smallest, therefore those people are the lowest status. Video screens are the largest, so they are bigger status.
Exactly.
Right?
It's as simple as that, right?
It's possibly as simple as that.
So I think you're right. And there's a good thought experiment on this. 30 years ago, what were the top two actors in Bollywood? Dharmendra, Amitabh.
Sure.
After that, it was Shah Rukh, Salman.
Maybe that's 40 years ago. 30 years ago, Shah Rukh, Salman.
40 years ago.
Right.
Then Shah Rukh, Salman.
Right.
Then it is...
Shah Rukh, Salman.
No, then it's like Ranveer.
That's 10 years ago.
Yeah, 10 years ago. Now who?
Ranveer still no?
I just feel like...
It's up for debate.
There's no one to take their place now. Like there's no next...
Right.
Ranveer were there even when Shah Rukh were at their prime and they were like, they were
stacking wins.
And they were being, positioned at the top. I just feel like Bollywood is a very coordinated industry. Like a lot of people ask us now that you've done so well at EOS, why don't you do movies? I'm like, do you understand how coordinated Bollywood is? For me to break in is hard. It's easier for me to break in with games because there's no one there, right? Bollywood, I'll always have to play according to somebody else's rules, which I don't want to do. Creator economy was open enough for me where I didn't have to play by anybody else's rules. And the few people that were on the top, I knew them, right? I built relationships with them. I think with Bollywood, they were a very coordinated system, but that coordination is fading out, right? It's very hard for them to, like I said, right? Like the simulacra, the creating, and maybe I'm using the wrong word, but I'm just going to use the word for the rest of the podcast, which is this suspended reality to give this debutee, 2 years of everybody saying, wow, this guy has potential. They need to be able to create that. And because they don't have access to social media, enough social media distribution across small channels, big channels, they can't do this, right? Whereas you look on the other side in the US, who is more likely to sell out a stadium? Tom Holland or Mr. Beast?
Mr. Beast.
And Tom Holland is Spider-Man.
Yeah. The status that a Tom Holland has is way bigger.
Yeah, but also Mr. Beast is like, Mr. Beast is now doing like finance, he's doing bank, he's doing credit cards, not credit cards, like mobiles, connections, Feastables. But Mr. Beast has a massive clipping service. Mr. Beast gets social media, right? So he gets social media. Therefore, he's given himself that 2 years, 3 years of momentum of being bigger. And I think in India, we will now see some of that, right?
Sure.
And I think Akshay Khanna was a very good example of this because By the way, I thought the song was good.
Right.
And I thought Akshay's
Performance
was
great.
good. But it's not like,
Yeah, it's not stealing the show in the way
it's
that
not
the
the
PR made it.
Godfather. Yeah.
Right.
So
It's
the
not
PR
Marlon
was the
Brando.
suspended reality that I'm talking about.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And I know there was spend on it.
Right.
So it is the suspended reality that I'm talking about that gives a person a shot. And it feels slightly better than it is to give that person the breathing room to go out and do their best performance.
Right.
And then you end where the performance is. Eventually, after 6 months, people go back and be like, and there's a lot of things that are misgraded, right? Like a lot of things will be like Pulp Fiction, right? Wasn't like that well received. But 10 years later, it becomes a cult classic.
Right.
Because you're like, oh, actually, now it's really good. So eventually, after a very long period of time, you fall to your rate of performance.
Right.
But in the short term, you need the suspended reality. And what I've done with EOS very well, I would argue, at least so far, and nobody can predict the future, but I think we've built this suspended reality, not just for ourselves, but for so many different companies who need that shot. And some of those companies have gone on to do well, right? So, yeah.
What do you think? You did touch upon this early in the conversation about how work will change and jobs are unnatural, and we might return to the order where the natural kind of work might, prosper more than this unnatural 9 to 5 sitting in front of a screen. The very fact that we have to sit 8 hours for a job and that has massive health consequences at this point is a symptom enough that jobs in the way that they are today are unnatural. My question is then, what does work look like? Because you see, work is a very complicated issue. You've asked me this question before. Once I told you, listen, once I make enough money and whatever, I'll quit and I'll buy an island and I'll live on that island. Sorry, I didn't mean to sound like Jeffrey Epstein, but you know what I'm trying to say. Like, I'll cut myself off from society. Society is overbearing. Every young guy who has a shot thinks this. And then you said, but what will you do for work? And I said, I don't know. And you said, you will need work because work is more than just money made or status earned. It is what grounds you to the everyday passing of time.
It's identity.
It's identity. And it's also your shot at mobilizing yourself in society. So whatever game you might be playing, for me to move up or down, a promotion, a raise, a better title, who I get clicked with, who I work with, all of those things play a part, right? But if the future of work is that artificial intelligence is going to bring most of the value produced into the picture, how is social mobility happening at that point? How am I competing, which is a core human instinct, and how am I winning?
Dude, I think we made this mistake. I don't know if it's a mistake. It's just happened, right? Like I think we've connected identity to what makes us money. And it's now gotten to so bad. I'll give you a very good example. I'm sure there's a brand manager somewhere that has spent money on you simply because they want to tell their friends
that they spend money on me.
I spend money on you. And some of them, sometimes I'm sure they get you on a WhatsApp call or a call just before your campaign goes live just to see you face to face. They'll take a screenshot. Right. And I feel like this exists in all domains, right? Like, and I never thought this would be the like kind of one of the side effects of having 1 million followers. I have like 2.3 million followers across platforms, right? And one of the side effects of that is now people know me, and sometimes they want to get clicked with me, even though like
they don't know your name.
Yeah, they don't even know. They don't even know any of these things. Sometimes they don't even know my name in the airport. Sometimes I know you. You're some tech guy, right?
Right.
And I'm like, then I introduce myself,
right?
Because I use every opportunity to go out there and reinforce the story. But I think ultimately we screwed up by connecting identity and work, because I think work is going to go away, and you need identity. And work, apart from making you money, is also a bounded game. Inside your company, there are rules on how you get promoted, how you get demoted, how cheating, etc. In the free market economy, we don't have that. But intra-company, we have that. We have rules on how you get promoted, this, that, whatever. And I think in some of these intra-company games, in some of these intra-company rules, they keep us busy. Like, it'll be very funny, but without office politics, the world would be a much worse place.
Yeah, people would kill themselves. They would shoot themselves in the head. Because
or they'd go to do that politics outside, right?
Yeah,
like
right, sure.
They'd put their internal violence outside.
Right.
So I think office politics sucks away a bunch of people's time. Like, for example, inside EOS, like, there are two units fighting about something, right? It's a trivial issue, in my opinion. And I let them fight. I'm just like, you guys fight. Because it keeps, some amount of their time busy, where otherwise they would be, complaining about something or the other. So I'm like, okay, fine. You fight it. Feel like you finished. Feel like you won. Feel like you were heard. And then come to me with whatever your end resolution is. And I'll only put my foot down if it gets ugly. But otherwise, you guys fight. So honestly, I think it plays an important role. And if you take that away, like work from home taught us this, right? If you allow a person to work from home for enough time and they don't have family at home, like other people to talk to,
yeah, right.
Man, they go crazy.
They spiral.
they spiral.
Right.
And eventually they're we've hired a lot of people this year who are like, I just don't want to work from home. Like we can't do work from home because we're a content company, but it's like, they're just like, I can't like sit at home and do
I know
this
what you
anymore.
mean. Right.
And so we hire them back. So I think the minute you remove this and they have to work from home all the time and they have nothing to do, they have two choices, right? Actually one choice, which is they need to find a bounded game. So either you go start up Dota or Counter-Strike or something and find a bunch of gamers on Discord and start playing with them, or you meet somebody or you go into some club or something, right? Some way to keep yourself busy, because humans need to keep themselves busy. Idle mind is actually the devil's workshop.
Sure.
Right? I would say I'm bragging here for a second, but I'm not really bragging. I'm trying to make a point, which is that I think I'm one of the most straightforward and nicest people now compared to any other time in my life. And not just nice is the wrong word. I would say just straightforward and less likely to do bullshit or scam or fraud or whatever anytime, mainly because I'm so damn busy. Right? Like I'm so busy. Right?
I know
I
what
have
you mean.
so many things to do. I don't have the bandwidth to go and do Kira.
Scheme. Yeah. You can't scheme at that.
Not scheme, like anything, any drama, this, that. I'm just like, if someone's fighting with me, I'm just like, bro, it's fine.
Yeah,
right?
I have more things to
I have more things to worry about, right? Like if someone said something, I won't overthink it because I'm just like, I have so many things on my plate right now. So I just feel that the opposite of that is somebody very, very idle, who they will invent problems, because just like your stomach, right? Like if you don't eat anything, your stomach chews itself.
Yeah, right.
Right? You erode stomach lining. Acid erodes stomach lining. Similarly, if your brain has nothing to chew on, it'll chew on itself.
Right.
So you invent problems, you create problems. That's why I said, like, what I meant was not scam or scheme or whatever. I'm less likely to invent new problems.
I know what you mean. Right.
Because my brain is packed. But when you're idle on the other end, it's really bad.
Right.
And I think that we're going to have a world of a lot of people idle. And a lot of them, I already know what they do. They sit on social media and they complain.
Sure.
Right? Not complain, they're fighting, complaining, engagement baiting, whatever. But that also is a bounded game.
Sure.
A bounded game is where you have a score and rules and they have score, likes, whatever, this, that, followers. That's the meaning of their life.
Right.
So, but nobody likes calling themselves, oh, I spend all my time on social media commenting. That's not their identity, but it's at least what keeps them busy. But I think bounded games, at least in the real world, also give you a sense of identity.
Right.
I'm also a painter, right? And I'm among this painting club. And in my painting club, I'm number one. Whatever it is.
Precisely, right.
So I think we need more of those. And, one of the things we've been doing this year is I've been investing in one of our subsidiaries where we want to do more offline stuff to create some of this. Like we saw some of this with AVTV. Because AVTV has this offline thing where we do a meetup every 6 months or whatever for all the kids who study video editing. And now there's stack ranking there. There's like, who are the top guys? Who are the top guys? Some of them have interesting stories to tell each other. They're all learning things. So we've seen a beautiful community be created. And this is something that I've fundamentally always been good at, creating communities. My last company was a community platform, right? And I think people will want more and more communities. And I think that's a huge opportunity for every entrepreneur to pick a niche and just build a community, but really care about the community, not just end it at a WhatsApp group and try to make fake conversation, right? Like try to keep the community alive for engagement, but like get all of these people and take them offline, right? Go host an event for them. Like Peak State, Zerodha did this thing called Peak State where they got all the fitness enthusiasts. We did some of the back end stuff for that. Like I think at least from a content perspective, right, where we help them with, I think we have seen the demand for many of these niche communities because these people have excess time. So the secondary problem with AI is it gives people a lot of this excess time, which they need to spend somewhere. Otherwise, idle mind, devil's workshop.
I honestly feel like you might be underestimating the length of the problem here. I think I've never been a doomer. We've had history talking to each other. I've never been a doomer about how AI might pose civilizational risks, because my thought's always been, if it does not want the same food I want, there's very little chance it's going to compete with me with as much ferocity as I might, right? With another human. However, I do think this idea that people will sit at home with universal basic income and we will all find painting and poetry and that it will all
I don't
have
think we'll have universal basic income. It makes no sense. The problem with universal basic income is how politics works.
Right.
If there are two parties, one party is always going to say, hey bro, my UBI number is 8,000. The next party will be like, my UBI number is 9,000. And they'll only compete on that one thing because that's one thing universally understood, right? Money. And everyone will just compete on that number, like none of the other policies matter. So it's a bad idea.
Right.
But universal basic resources is much better, which is we have AI abundance. It can create, unlimited food, energy, blah, blah. Here are the 4 essentials humans need, which is food, energy, shelter, internet access, and so on and so forth, right? Like whatever, you figure out the minimum viable water access, and just AI makes that possible for every human, right? And it's very, like, I don't know about the transition period between today and then, right? Like how many corrupt people are going to come in the way, and like
I understand.
I'm ignoring all
Ceteris
of
paribus, right?
Yeah, I'm just ignoring the next 10 years, but I'm saying beyond that, I feel like the entire job of AI is to create abundance.
Yeah, but you know what I really worry for is how people are going to spend their time after that. Because I do not think that we will find these offline communities where we play badminton and compete there, and that's going to fulfill my self of existence. See, if you look at the problem of existence itself in the mind of a human, the length we have to go to invent meaning. You know, as we age, we become more religious because we end up thinking this all cannot be random. And after 50 years, I'm broken. My atheism's broken. I'm like, there has to be God because all this cannot be random. And so meaning making is a very important function of human intelligence. And we spend decades building meaning. To say that I will find the same sense of meaning, the same sense of identity in a badminton club or a painting class is just not going to cut it, right? As a matter of fact, I think the painting class or the badminton club is only valuable beyond my job at Google or beyond my job at AV, because this grounds me, this makes sure money comes in. I am at par with all my peers as far as this job is concerned, but I'm also a badminton player. I also play FIFA and I played better. And this is where the competitive edge from these trivialities sort of come in. I think the core problem that we are going to encounter psychologically is going to be that people cannot be free, and the number one driver for people into mental states of depression, etc., is going to be this idleness.
I don't think they're going to be free. I think there's going to be enough and more clubs in games invented. I'm very bullish on the future of games. Like, games are the one place that can really distract people, especially social, can really distract people. Like, why do you play poker? Like, how much of poker do you play for the money, and how much do you play for a good time with your friends?
Yeah, the latter. I don't play for the money at all.
Correct.
I don't care for the money. Yeah,
correct.
Right.
The only people who care about poker for the money are people who really don't have money, or people who are professionals.
Career, right? Yes.
But I think most people play for recreation because they want to hang out with their friends. So, dude, you don't have to look very far. You just have to look at healthy retirees, and healthy retirees are playing poker-like games throughout the entire day. 6 to 7, they have badminton. 7 to 8, they have poker. 8 to 9, they have something else. Days back.
But I think this is where all technologists' opinion might actually be wrong. And look, I mean, who am I to comment, right? But I genuinely feel like if you look at a retiree and how their life changes after they retire, how much their lifespan changes after they retire, how much their emotional states change after they retire. And
I'm only talking about the happy ones.
Right. No, I'm saying...
I'm talking about as a model of what average youngsters would do.
Sure. As a function of age also, the fact that you are retiring after 63 where testosterone's low, it's not at 20 where it's raging and wants to accomplish social achievements. I think the hidden cost here is the number of people that will have nothing to do because AI has done a lot. And I do worry in my, after some of the more recent stuff that's come up, I don't live in a world where I believe what I used to believe. It sort of shattered this kind of illusion. And I really wonder if depopulation is going to be one of those things that's going to be thrown around as a word, at least vocabularily, in the future. Because you don't think so? You think we can sustain this population where there is no work? I think we can sustain this population with no money, but very rarely with no work.
I think we can. Dude, I want to go back to a point I made in the beginning, right? Which is about bounded games. Everything we've spoken about, playing football, playing poker, playing this, playing that, they're all bounded games. I think humans will find a bounded game. Because see, by the way, you can play like football professionally as well, right? You can play cricket professionally. Bounded game, there's a ranking of 11 people in your country, you play against other countries, there's a ranking there as well. I think humans will spend a lot of their time playing bounded games. If you look at kids of very rich parents, most of the time they're like I met this guy recently who's like, dude, I play professional polo. Like, India has a polo thing. Right. I didn't even know, right? And he's like, yeah, and his parents run like 1,000 crore plus company. So I've just seen too many examples of kids of rich people who are now spending a lot of their time on sport.
Because their status needs are met.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. So I feel like but they still have the status, they still have that ranking inside polo.
Sure.
Polo mein utna ye whatever. Like to me it's like childish, right?
Right.
But also I'm trivializing because I'm like, if I was in that position, I would take it seriously.
Sure.
Entrepreneurship, for example. Now that we have finally built a bootstrap, profitable, reasonably large company, I look at a lot of the VC games that people are playing, like young kids who are raising 3 million, 4 million, whatever. I'm just like, that looks like a trivialized status game to me today. So I just feel that from the outside, it's very easy to look at a game and say, trivial. But inside the game, when you're caught in it, the status games matter, the bounded rules matter, and people will spend a lot of their time enjoying that space, in my opinion. But at the same time, the world is complex. There is going to be teething trouble as we transition. There's going to be a lot of people. You cannot put a blanket ban on people not having more kids. And I think I
don't even think that's a moral thing to do, really.
to have too many kids.
No, or to like stop people from having kids.
Yeah, you
right.
can't do that.
Right.
But also like some of these people make really bad decisions. Right?
Sure.
Like,
Agreed.
My driver makes a certain amount of money and it's reasonably good. And he's now having like his second or third kid, right? And I'm like, bro, like...
Even if the mistake is your
kids-
driver's, I think the responsibility of that circumstance is on society and systems writ large. So, I mean, he should take care of the fact that, he should not be having as many kids.
No,
as
but we
current
can't do
system.
that. That's like saying flattening the curve in COVID, right? Everybody sit at home.
Sure.
Like someone's going to violate.
Sure.
So I think
Yeah, I agree.
people are just going to do what they want.
Right.
Like the system has to work even when people make errors. Like the system has to account for those errors and control them. You can't expect people's goodwill.
Sure.
Right? Like if the law didn't exist, people would be breaking the law all the time. Right? Like in India, even though the law exists, people break the law. And I think for especially like, I think the more you have to lose, like today I have a lot to lose. So I'm like, you or me or whoever else, right? Like people at the top, they're very law abiding, right? Like we're all like, we play to the T, we won't make any mistakes. And I think people who are just starting out or, in my driver's position, they don't care about any of this. Not even the law, not even, what is my financial balance sheet. They don't do any of that math, right? And that's an education problem. So I think kids will become a problem because the problem is not the kid when it's young. The problem is the kid when it's 18. Like now what? You create a new house and more abundance for this. Now if you have unlimited, then sure. But it'll always be rate limited by something. One of the factors on giving people UBI. So it's unfair to give a person with like 20 kids all those kids the same treatment as one person with 2 kids, right? Because this person has been more responsible. Why is he being penalized? Because this person now gets 20 houses, right? If you're talking that way. So I don't have a solution for it. But at the same time, the world was never meant to be easy.
Right. Where do you think does AI hit first? I asked this question because I think at a certain point, we'll find large industries.
Software engineers.
Right. I think so as well, right? It has the most context on software engineers.
I've been saying this for 3 years and getting belted. Like every time I made a video about software engineers going to be automated. And I'll tell you why I started saying it. I started saying it after AutoCode Pro. We built something called AutoCode Pro. By the way, EOS Labs, the entity that we have, it's just we experiment with all the new models, right? Technically, what we have done for the last 3 years is a kind of research, right? Like we use a new model in unique ways, right? We're like we built AutoCode early, we built Alpha CTR early, but we build products. We don't write papers, and we never go to conferences or whatever because we don't build foundational models. We're always sitting on top of the models. But I think there is valuable research to be done on existing models as well. Like AI avatars was a great social experiment that we proved out, right? But I never wrote a paper on it because I'm just like, I don't want to play that status game, right? I would just rather commercialize. And sure, we haven't written the paper on AI avatars and what the impacts are because we did it very, very early. But I have money in its stead to prove for it, right? In the form of brand deals. But at the same time, I think, what is my point?
You were talking about how as software developers will be the first one to be hit.
For 3 years, I've been talking about software because we built this thing called AutoCode Pro. Again, it was one of those experiments that labs did. Sorry, I got sidetracked. One of the experiments that labs did, which is we built AutoCode Pro because I want to learn more about how agentic software coding will evolve. There was this repository on GitHub called Small AI. It's called Small or Smallest or something like that. Yeah, it's just called Small, SMOL. And we picked it up. We saw the prompt. We put our own spin on the prompt. We rewrote it in a different language. And we put it out and we saw how people used it. We saw how people were prompting it for. It was really good at making Chrome extensions because it's a little more bounded game. But the model failed because it couldn't reason well. And we immediately, I'm not like an AI, I'm not a researcher, but I could tell immediately it's failing because of reasoning issues. It's making the wrong long-term decisions to do this, right? Like it's saying that I'll make a MySQL DB for this problem statement, but at the end of the day, it's like it's writing code for some other type of it's writing code for PG, Postgres SQL, right? So I could see this, and I'm like, it's not planning well long run, so it needs better planning, better reasoning. But as that reasoning and planning got better, and remember, we ran this as an experiment just for me to learn, right? But as that time has passed and we've seen now agentic coding models get better, it's now inevitable to me that it's going to completely automate end-to-end software engineering, like everything, right? Including some of the hardest problems. Now, of course, the thing is, once you've done 4-5 years as a software engineer, there is a human component to it, right? Which is you now need to negotiate with stakeholders. You need to do a little bit of product management. You need to do requirements analysis. And requirements analysis is very tricky because in the real world, requirements analysis, let's say I walk into a company, and we've done some of this at labs, right? Where we've helped companies try to figure out, well, how do we automate some of their stuff? When we walk into the company, it'll be messy, dude. Like there'll be one guy who'll be like, mere paas data nahi hai, uske paas hai, udhar ja. Then you go to the other guy, he's like, no, that guy has it. And then you go back to the guy, he's like, yeah, I have it, but I forgot the password. I'll get it to you tomorrow. It's very messy stuff that AI can't navigate. So requirements, and I put it down to just requirements collection, right? Like Requirements collection is just always going to be human, right? Getting what exactly needs to be built either from the people in the company if you're building an internal tool or the public if it's an external tool. It's kind of a little bit of product management. But once you have that, actually writing code and putting it out into an app that's usable and testing that app, to me, it looks like that's going to be totally automated, right? There's no two ways around it. And I've seen engineer cope for the last 2 years. It's always in my comments, right? Like people abusing me saying, you're not a real engineer. And I'm like, bro, I studied computer science engineering. My second last semester, I studied AI in college. Right out of college, I was doing freelancing on Ruby on Rails. And then I passed out of college and I built software companies, right? Like I've done this for so long. And with my last company, we clipped the edge. We clipped the edge where we realized it's easier and easier to build software. Even before AI, it was easier and easier to build software. 2021 was an anomaly. Crazy Ideas got funded, right? But I think 2026 is not an anomaly. You and I don't download too many apps anymore.
No.
So even if AI was fading out, I think, even if AI didn't really hit so much, software would still be in trouble simply because of the fact that the demand for it has gone down. Whereas you follow a lot more creators today than, you click on new creators, you subscribe to channels, you watch videos, much more. Your video consumption is much more than your new app downloads or new app consumption, right? So I'm not very bullish about it. But at the same time, and I was at the PM office today, right? Like just maybe a couple of hours after you were there in the morning, I was there a couple of hours later. And I was talking to them and I was talking to them about this, right? And they get it, dude. Like they get it. Like I spoke to Maharashtra, I spoke to a couple of people from the Maharashtra government about this. I've spoken to this thing. Everyone sees it. The writing's on the wall.
That
software is like on its way out.
Software's on its way out.
Yeah.
Or software engineers are on their way out.
Software engineers.
Right. So the software layer will be handled with AI is what they see. The writing's on the wall.
Like,
right. Okay.
The question in my head is, I think Infosys may be fine.
Sure.
They might use all these dev tools and like still be good because they will still do the requirements analysis. It's a crude, irritating process. They'll go to let's say they're building infrastructure for some Swiss bank. They will send up a bunch of people there to collect information from like 10 people. It'll be a nice process that still exists. So my mind on this has changed. I used to think Infosys might die, this, that, whatever. And I still don't have, nobody can predict the future. So I still don't have a concrete answer. But I think if requirements analysis exists, they will continue to exist because people are too lazy to do that, to figure out what data is where. It's a real job. This is an annoying job. But after you pull out the data, putting it into AI and saying, hey, build an app out of this to solve this problem statement, trivial. And there'll still be some guy running it, right? Like the CEO is not going to sit there and prompt all these apps. There'll still be a guy running it. But it'll be much lesser in number.
Yeah, right.
And definitely not worth $200 billion of the export that we do now. It's more than $200 billion, around $250 billion of software exports. Definitely nowhere close to that.
Right.
And I have, in my opinion, there are many alternatives we need to be thinking of. There are many places where people need to pivot and say, okay, maybe I can do this. Game dev is a very good example, right? C++ engineers, we still use a lot of cloud code to help us write games. But new market, potentially new demand, but it's definitely not $250 billion worth of exports.
Right.
It's a huge vacuum that's going to be left. I have no idea what's going to happen to them. And I just feel like they're too closely attached to their identity. So they just it's like the artists on Twitter, right?
Yeah,
the artists
they will
on
not
Twitter
see it coming. Huh?
No matter how good AI video has become, the artists on Twitter will still be but
it's not human.
But soul nahi hai.
Yeah, right.
Do you think the average public cares?
Right.
So I think that's the conundrum we're in. And I try to be, as a creator and an entrepreneur, I try to be very empathetic about this. I try to keep thinking about, and this is something I've started doing in my 30s, which is, Varun, tell me 5 ways you are wrong about this. And I do this all the time, right? I'm like, before you put out something as sensitive as, or as, infuriating as software engineers might lose their jobs, can you think it through? Can you play out the 5 scenarios where you're wrong, where this doesn't happen? And dude, I can't think of any scenarios where this won't happen. Knowing, the big tech labs, spending time with them, knowing what their ambitions are, knowing the kind of spend, they're spending trillions of dollars, and your 3 lakh LPA think you'll be fine, beating, how? 3 lakh LPA, 3 LPA, whatever. Right. Even if it's 30 LPA, it's like a blip. It's like nothing, right? Compared to the amount being spent to try and automate this.
Right.
And automating this is very important to get to that singularity point, because when code can write other code, that's when you have the singularity, right? So I just feel like I don't know what to tell them anymore. And I try to do it as empathetically as I can. And I'm just keep your eyes open, experiment, which are all true things, right? If you experiment, you'll eventually figure out there are other fields you might like more. Go into places where there's less competition. But it's too strong. The narrative power of traditional college in India, of traditional IT in India, of their lobbying abilities is too strong. Because there's a lot of money there right now. even though it's fading, it's still there right now. And I don't have enough,
No, I also feel like, Varun, for a lot of people, and you probably will relate with your childhood, the only out of their social class goes through education. And if you're conditioned to believe in a dream that you're successfully actualizing, it's very hard for you to go back. This happens in Bollywood very often, where you'll see the dissonance because these guys came in with the idea, they dreamed of Shah Rukh's life, they dreamed of Salman's life, they dreamed of the fact that they would walk and people would part. But then they arrive and they realize they're actors. And it's not the same thing anymore. And they cannot measure themselves with the same dream. And the dissonance is very obvious on their faces. And then they find they have to place that dissonance somewhere. So sometimes that gets directed at creators. Sometimes it gets directed at producers. Wherever they can find a flaw. Because to go back and say, my code itself is so improper, I could not build a prediction model for reality properly, is super hard. You see this with the anti-Indian hate that's sprung up on Twitter more recently.
They can't deal with themselves.
It's because, they graduated college only to find they cannot find a job. They look around, they see Indians, they're like, Indians are to blame. Because the dream that was sold to them for this long is now turning out to be a very different direction, and the cope is very difficult. I think for a lot of Indians, education is the only way out. At least that's the story of my father, right? I may not have had to go to school to become successful because he could provide me with certain somethings. You probably were similar. You had to get to Manipal to actually be able to do the rest of it. Otherwise, you would not have the ticket, the permission to actually go about doing it. I know because most of the context that AI has is on software. So it'll do the software bricklayering very well. At least that's what my model comes up with. But the way it would impact society in the short run, before it normalizes and we find enough jobs where code keeping or sort of prompt engineering or one of these maintenance jobs sort of absorbs people en masse, we'll find a lot of unemployment. We'll find a lot of loss of trajectory. And I don't see a way out. If Infosys and these other companies get hit, that's a sizable percentage of our exports as a nation. This 250 billion is not a small number. I don't think we are all, I don't mean India, I mean the world. I don't think we are ready for it. I was looking at a graph about US employments for freshers, and it goes up since the 70s, and in 2022 it just begins to flatten. And these guys are all left wondering what the hell just happened. Is it recession? Is it inflation? They don't know what the economic vocabulary for it is. I was in Las Vegas about a few months ago, and I had the weirdest Turing test experience, okay? We'd traveled from LA to Vegas. Ansha and I, we'd driven. So 6 hours of driving, shooting 2-3 hours, coming back to Vegas, the city, finding our hotel. It's at 11 in the night. We check in, we're tired, we're exhausted. We go into the hotel room and the hotel room smells. And I need to call somebody to tell them, hey boss, can you spray something in here? So I call up the customer service and I have a proper 2-minute conversation where they understand my problem. They're like, we'll send somebody. And right before I'm about to hang up, I realized this is AI, boss. I didn't speak to a person at all. This is me speaking to a robot, and it's understood context and spoke to me. That means entry-level job for customer service at a hotel like Win is gone to zero. Nobody's being hired.
We are doing a project with Bangalore Police now where you call the cops, and if you're speaking in any language apart from Kannada, it's like there's a chance that 112 dials an AI bot. We're helping them implement this right now.
Can you believe that? So your labor shortage problem is solved for in this way. But also for a lot of people whose entry-level job was going to be, this is not going to be that. And they're going to be without a job and without direction. And the social anxiety, the identity anxiety will maximize.
Yeah,
so I think short-term issues, no?
Yeah, I think I have some advice, right? And I have advice, and I'll tell you why I think I'm the right person to give this advice, because I started my entire career, my entrepreneurial career, by building a job platform. Build JobSpy, right? I helped hundreds of thousands of people, freshers, get their jobs back then. And even today, we've been directly responsible. Last year, I did some math on this. I've been directly responsible for thousands of jobs, right? Across AV and then indirect, and then our investment, 100x engineers, the placements that happen there. And also, in general, people who've read Pajama Profit, a lot of indirect contribution as well, right? And I have some advice on this, which is I don't think in this era, you should attach your financial success to you. What I mean by that is,
it's no longer a function of your hard work alone.
It's no longer a function of your hard work alone. What I mean by that is, you could do your best work, you could be amazing, and it's not that the system has screwed you or you failed because of the system. It's just because the world now no longer rewards that. The world rewards people who took the same bets 20 or 30 years ago, just because of how it was, right? And it's not the system. The system can't save you. You have to,
this is father time.
Yeah, this is just time,
right?
real estate today, I feel so empathetic towards young kids. And I felt this 2 years ago when I was taking a loan, right? Like I was taking a loan, which now is a trivial amount, but I was taking a loan. I wanted to buy like a 2,400 square foot of land. And it's like, that time was a huge amount for me. Today it's like nothing. But like that time when I was taking that amount, it was just like, I was just like, this is so, like it'll take me 10 years of my life, 20 years of my life to pay this off. It's that much. And I have family, I have a wife, so I have to, I have to do the math correctly and all that. And I'm still in tech, and I was still reasonably well known back then. I still had like, I could figure out ways to make money. Imagine somebody who doesn't have all that. Like land. And sometimes then I'll hear like story of my, grandparents or something talking about land, and they'll just be like, oh, that time it was this price. Of course, understood for inflation and all that.
But even still, there is generational inflation too. Yeah. My dad could purchase land practically starting off as a chartered accountant. I don't think many mature creators at this point who get paid bullshit money for advertising deals can buy land very simply. There's a difference.
Yeah. Like even top creators today who are making like, millions of dollars still think like many times about buying land. Oh. Whereas if you were that famous back then, you would,
all land is yours, boss. Like it's done for, right?
Yeah. So I just feel that the world is stacked against young kids, and it's like not fair, and at the same time not fair that like, an Infosys started with a certain salary and 10 years later they're at the same salary. Like it just feels like, and I know the problem, right? And I'll try to enunciate the problem. The problem is when things are going well, and I've seen this with EOS as well, and people are paid well, this, that, whatever, people still complain. Like this, humans will never satisfy, they'll still complain. And when complaints reach like such a threshold, like management just decides, and I see this, internally as well. The management is just like, even if we do good stuff, they complain. So fine, let's just keep it static and let's just, keep cutting out year on year. And I'm like, no, we're not going to do that. Even if they complain, we should still do good stuff for them, right? Like that's our job. Mm-hmm. And I think most companies in the world, they become desensitized. They're like, even if we do the good, you're going to say bad things. Even if we do the bad, we're going to say bad things. And I think the biggest problem with Indians, right? Like in general, me included when I was much younger, is we complain too much. Like we just, we use every outlet to complain. We're like, Babu ne ye kiya, wo kiya, ye ne. Like we're just like, everybody accept us. And it's like traffic, right? Traffic is the best example. There's a saying, right? You're not in traffic, you are traffic. Right? Like you're part of the problem. And like I have a very good example of this, right? When we do playtests for our game, and this is how much Indians really like think about faults, right? Like when I do playtests for our game, right? And we have this like arena, we're testing combat now because we want to do state-of-the-art combat. So, we have this two areas. You walk in, you fight the boss. And we align everybody. Like you're going to walk in, you're going to fight the boss. Here are the controls. You're given like a bunch of tries. You can try to get better over time. We've done some playtests with Chinese audiences. You know what they do? They go, they master the boss. They try their best. Like they don't care about anything else. They go straight to the boss. They're competitive. And a bunch of other people, right? All across the world, like they all have their own styles, but ultimately they go into the boss room and they're trying to, fight the boss. Like Kalpe, when he was using when he was playing the game, he's like, I don't want the controller. I'll do it on the keyboard. Like it's literally like raw dogging it, right? Like, and he was so good. Like he played it pretty well. Whereas an Indian, you give them the keyboard or the controller and you say, do this. The first thing they'll start doing is they'll go to the side, they'll go to some wall and they'll try to go through it. They start doing, and like a journalist once did it when I was showing them Unleash the Avatar. And I was like, we have a QA role open if you want. A QA testing role open.
Right, that's what you're doing right now.
That's what you're doing right now. And it's like embarrassing, right? Like where you give them something and you're like, we're aligning you to do a boss fight. And the first thing they start doing is like trying to find faults, in the corners of the game. And we are very smart about it. Now we've sealed it tight, but like that wasn't the entire point. But it just goes to show you how Indians are, right? And I just feel like complaining serves no purpose. Half the reason that a lot of people are racist to us on the internet is because we react. Do you know one thing? Thought experiment. Is there anything you can say to an American about their group identity that they'd feel shameful about?
Sure.
Tell me.
I don't want to say it on camera.
Okay, but from this thing, there's nothing you can say to an American online that will make them feel bad. Like you can try OnlyFans. You can say, oh, your sister's on OnlyFans. You can say, oh, you're this or that. But it doesn't affect them. They don't care. But if you go personal, if you say you are broke, that really affects them. Whereas with India, a lot of social things affect everybody in India. Oh, this event was badly organized. Shame on all Indians.
Yeah, right.
Anything was this thing. Shame like we take shame this thing. And I was doing this, this conversation with Claude about this, right, the other day. And Claude is just like, that's because Indians have a very high amount of collectivism, right? Whereas Americans have a very high amount of individualism.
Right.
We're a very collectivist society. We really care about, we feel shame collectively.
Right.
If one human has done someone passed off a dog as their own dog or something like that in the event recently, right?
It's a shame on the country.
It's a shame on the country. And I'm like, bro, like you go to America, there'll be like 1,000 fraudsters like this.
Yeah, right.
America doesn't take offense for it. Like, why are you taking offense for everyone that's done something wrong? And also, media is incentivized to talk about these negative things because they're like, this will get me attention. Because people feel shame. The minute you stop feeling shame for what other people are doing, you're not going to sit and click media's links about how this one idiot did something wrong, whatever. You don't care anymore, right? Like, because you're living your life. America is like that. They live their life. And I just feel, going back to collectivism and this and that, I don't think you should feel shame. And this works the other way around as well, right? I don't think you should feel shame if tomorrow you end up becoming a delivery driver. Like, I have 1,000 times more respect for a delivery driver than somebody else like just talking on the sidelines. Right? I think whatever you need to do to put food on the table, and I do this thought experiment with me. Tomorrow, if I needed to be a delivery driver, if I needed to do like one of these base core roles, like clean a house, whatever, I would do it. Right? If taken to that extreme, I would do it. Like, my only role is to be adaptable. Right? Because to me, after my last company, right, I was an engineer and I was running a software company. The identity shift, because I wanted to be much bigger than it ended up being, right? The identity shift at the ending, like, I just took so much time to adapt. To be like, because I went from being an engineer and an entrepreneur to a content creator.
Right.
I had a temporary 1 year period where I was just a content creator.
Right.
And it was such a fall from grace for me. But I found so much protection in it. Because I'm like, as a content creator, I'm an idiot.
Right.
Nobody really has high expectations.
Yeah, you're not expected to be the smartest of the lot.
I'm not expected to do anything. I'm not expected to build a business, that, whatever. So anything I do from here would be a surprise.
Sure.
Which is great.
Right.
Whereas an entrepreneur, funded entrepreneur and all that,
There's
always pressure, right? So I just felt so good. And I just felt that identity crack. And today, like, when people ask me what I do, even though, we run, a company with 500 and something people and, do so many different things, I'm still like, brother, I'm a content creator. I make videos. Even though technically, I barely make videos. My AI avatar makes videos. Right. But I still take so much pride in not hiding under, but like just saying I'm a content creator because it's the lowest status I have, right? And today when I introduce myself at events and all that, I'm just like, I'm the resident idiot, right? Like, I just say that because why not? And my Twitter bio also says, I'm an idiot. Don't take me seriously. Because I'm just like, I don't want to put my identity on a pedestal while other people are on a lower pedestal.
Sure.
And I just think that in India, there is going to be tons of offline jobs. They're not going anywhere. Moravec's paradox is in the way of all of this being automated immediately.
Right.
Yes, digital jobs, they're going to be reshuffled. But the minute you have what I had after my last company, just have this reset in your head of who you are, and know it's a lot more malleable than it is. It's a lot more, it's like clay, right? You can modify it. It's not made in stone. It's not set in stone. Your friends will care about it for 5 minutes, then they won't care.
Right.
The most successful people in the world are people who are willing to change their identities, right? Who are willing to take their identity and change it as the world changes. It's survival of the fittest. It's survival of the most adaptable. It's not survival of the software engineer, right?
Right.
So I think people will have this opportunity to pivot many times. There'll be some people who go down to the wire who, like, the next 3 years they'll go down stretch, like keep shifting as they keep getting fired to another job. One of the worst job, have the salaries go down and then leave. And there'll be some smart people who realize danger is in the way. Like, I always felt this, right? Like, the analogy I give is like, you're driving a car and there's a wall in the way. Okay, but the wall is only this wide. You can turn left or right. And most of the engineers who are complaining, in general about AI advancement or whatever, it's like, you can just take a right or left, right? But they're like, no, I'm going to study harder. I'm going to accelerate. I'm going to press the accelerator even harder. I'm like, you're just going to crash on the wall harder, right? And in fact, this wall is like, it's coming towards you.
Right.
So I just feel like, why not turn? Isn't it a sign of intelligence to turn? The sign of intelligence is adaptability. You like poker, right? Like, I'm the worst poker player because I don't fold. Like, I never fold because I enjoy the game, right? Like, I'm like, okay, I don't want to fold. I just want to keep playing. Like, I don't want to sit out of hands.
Right.
But in the real world, that's not, like, poker analogy is good in the real world, right? Which is, you got to learn how to fold.
Yeah.
And I just feel like, as a software engineer, if you need to fold, you need to fold.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with it.
Sure. I think that's a kind of agency that's also, see, it's anti-ideological. The ideology is certainty. The ideology is if you follow a certain path, certainty arrives. And the very idea of, hey boss, listen, the world has shifted and you might want to dance with it for a little bit before it settles down, is very anti-ideology. There's a dissonance that comes from it. I do understand. Also, by the way, you said you don't know what function complaining serves. It serves the function of social unity. Because if you all complain about the same thing, we're part of the same thing.
No, I know, yeah.
Right? And Indians love collectivism. As a matter of fact, in research literature, they separate India into a country they study differently for the fact that we are not individualistic and we will not show the same psychological results, for instance, in psychology studies. It's a very unique case. And I do understand some of the resistance, boss, like being told that the window of dreams that you've been raised up with is closing on you and there's nothing nobody can do. You're bringing the bad news, boss, right? Like they will hate you. They hate the messenger.
Don't shoot the messenger.
But I think on social media, shooting the messenger is the protocol, right? Like,
but you know what? It's not
actually shooting the guy, so they can say what they say to you.
But I don't mind it because I grew up watching Code Geass, right? Like, or even Attack on Titan. The best stories are stories where you are okay. Like I don't mind being the bearer of bad news. I would rather hear the bad news. You hear the bad news from me. You attack me. You call me names. You do whatever you want to. But as long as some portion of that message stays with you and you adapt. And if like my message is always very clear. If you're top 1% software engineer, you'll be fine. If you're in the top 1% and you're listening, you'll be fine. Like nothing will happen to you.
Sure.
But if you're the 99% and you're listening to this, you have two choices. You can complain, you can attack me, you can say something mean in the comments, or you can be like, maybe this saying something that makes sense. The evidence back mounts it. Like extraordinary evidence. Carl Sagan, right? Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. The extraordinary evidence is there, right? This is an extraordinary claim. This is dying, but like the extraordinary evidence is there. If the claims and the evidence match up, and as long as like I've influenced you in some way to at least think about your career and think about pivoting and think about adaptability, and this is not the first time this happened. This happened 10 years in the past, 20 years in the past with many different types of jobs. And the entire field of computer science has done this to so many other fields, by the way.
Right.
We have automated so many other jobs across other fields. Like we have no right to complain. It's our turn now. It's okay.
Right. Everything from taxis to hotels to tourism to all these things got taken over by tech slowly. Everything moved to Silicon Valley.
So if I'm think about a cab driver, right? Like a guy running a cab unit or whatever that Uber picked. Like we've crushed lives.
Yeah.
So if it's our turn once, it's okay. We'll
if
pay
you
the
look
penance.
up the medallion system and how many, those medallions for taxis that used to happen. In fact, if you go to Goa, those taxi people are still complaining for that. If you go to the mountains, they're still complaining. And so it's a very complicated mess that tech has. It's almost like the cat is out of the bag, the train has left the station, it'll go where it'll go. Right. And there's very, very few ways to sort of turn the tide of time. You know what was also very interesting recently when they started sort of talking about taking over Greenland, when America started talking about that, I realized something, that if the only blocker in the future is compute in the digital realm, right? If with sufficient compute, all problems are solvable, then effectively the value of money might actually change. The value of money might go down to zero. And then what we will need is some kind of token that represents energy, because energy is effectively...
It'll be money only.
It'll be money.
You're cyclically coming back to money.
Right. But instead of being probably tied to gold, because gold digging will get so cheaper, gold will become more...
What it's tethered to might change.
Change. So that might change. And at that moment, what really matters is energy, compute, weapons. And that becomes the limiting factor of a country. And I wonder if you ever thought about...
And land.
And land, sure. I think we have sufficient land. Globally, I think
this is more, you're talking about nation states. I'm talking about humans. Like with EOS, we have a plan, right? Like I think I've told you about this like 5-6 years ago. We're putting into action now, which is we're buying about 5-6 acres of land and just building our own thing. I said it on Nikhil Kamath's podcast as well. This is always part of the plan. We have now finally generated enough cash we don't have enough cash to build up structures yet, but we have enough cash for the land, at least in Bangalore, which is expensive. And we work very, very hard for it. But it matters. This matters. Like land really matters, because once you have land, especially in a country like India, which is a republic, you know it's not going to be taken away from you. It's rare. Right. On a country level, though, it changes the dynamics. It's no longer about import-export. It's about how much energy you can produce and consume. It's about what kind of compute you have domestically available, right? That is safe from other players, and the weapons. Is there anything else I might be missing in terms of narrative? Interesting. Yeah. Soft power is probably the most critical, right? Like, look at China. China is a very good example, by the way. China is an example of a post-economic country in some ways. What I mean by that is, Bilibili in China, the social network. By the way, do you know that I pull more views on Bilibili than I pull on YouTube?
Do you do it in Chinese?
No, I do it in English. And then we do translations. Me and Ron did a video recently, got 2.5 million views.
Okay.
And we know the Bilibili team also now. Especially after the game, right? The game went super viral there. So after that, they called us, they said, do a video, etc. And I spent a lot of that time learning about Chinese social media. Dude, China had this period of inward lookingness. Okay. And because the US is blocked. See, I've always had this issue with demand. Okay. I'll explain this issue. Today, a lot of things that Indians want, you want to buy something like a shoe, chappal, this, that, whatever. If you have disposable income, you're sitting on the same social media platform as everybody else. You're going to see these cool companies, Nike, this, that, whatever. And they have global comms, global social media, global aspiration, Apple, this, that, whatever. And you're like, I want that. But then maybe you're like, I can't afford that. So then what you do is you go spend money on the cheapest Indian who can make a copy of that. And those Indians, of course, they're serving a need. You want it, they're serving the need, they're offering it to you at a certain price. And then we abuse them. We're like, you're not innovative, you're just copying products. And the guy's like, bro, if I made my own unique products, you guys wouldn't even care. Which is true, by the way. India does make some unique products. Nobody gives a shit because it's not cool enough. I told you, purchasing decisions are social decisions, right? So America's creating demand. India is cloning those products and solving that demand. China was doing this for a long time. When China started becoming inward focused on their own social media platform and language became the barrier, demand was generated by Chinese individuals. Supply was created by Chinese individuals. Now, free cash flow, which should have gone from an individual to globally outside to one of the school brands, now go back into China. They have excess free cash flow. They can now spend more money on R&D. They can build cooler products, better products. So that has happened enough cycles. And there's two paths clearly in China. One is manufacturing. You go manufacture, make things, right? And you make things at reasonably low cost. China's not learned branding yet. So they still make things at low cost. You can get like Foshan furniture for like reasonably cheap. The other path is, let me become a social media influencer.
Oh, really?
Okay. And I want to tell you one thing. Bilibili is like, dude, there are videos of Indian creators who made videos about Unleash the Avatar that are on Chinese social media.
But not on free internet social media.
No.
But they're also on YouTube, etc.
Yeah, it's Bilibili. It's Indians have made it. They've translated, put it in.
Oh, okay.
Because there's so many people making videos there. Because you make money on making videos, right? And the Chinese MCN, and actually EOS is an MCN, right? The model of EOS, like at least so EOS has many parts. One of the parts we have is our own influencer network, right? Like where we own all the influencers, or the creators as we call them. China has this, it's called MCN, and it's very different from American influencer networks. American influencer networks are aggregates. Let me go get Jake Paul and Logan Paul and like these 10 other people independent, and let me put them together, and then I'll take a small piece of all of them, like influencer marketing agencies. But in China, they're not transactional. They're like, we'll make the influencer from day one, like K-pop.
Got it.
Right? They like Korea also did this very well, right? Like, but like you take a creator, you teach him.
They cultivate the talent, position,
which
place.
is by the way what we're doing, right?
Right.
Like with EOS, we have Gen Z, which is a school for creators. We have AB, which creates video editors. We put a video editor and a creator together. We use our existing distribution to boost this person. That's how, like, for example, Mr. Nerf is a good example of a channel that we've grown, right? Using our existing distribution, push a new channel, train the creator, figure out everything, like the entire life cycle, brand deals, everything, like end to end. Right. That's the MCN China model. And I think you'll be surprised at the number of MCNs in China. Like there's a huge number. And by the way, India is not oblivious to this. When I spoke to Kaustubh, I think, from Fadnavis's office. He's the advisor to the CM in Maharashtra. And he was telling me this cool thing about how they now recognize Indian jobs, like creator jobs, as true jobs, as true like mini entrepreneurship as well. Like if a creator is there and they have like 4 employees, 5 employees, it's a real unit. And I used to think when I went into the government office, whatever, this is my last 6 months only, I've like EOS has done well, so we get invited into some of these. But like in general, I just feel that I used to think they were bozos. I used to think these guys don't know anything. But now that I've met them, I'm like, these guys know a lot of this. But they're also very careful on how they communicate to the public, because you can't shock the public and suddenly say the things that me as an individual creator can come and say, oh, software is going through this, whatever. It's like it'll create too much panic. But they see the signs, right? And I think India is going to go the Chinese way of, there are going to be lots of MCNs. A lot of them will create a lot of value for the people that work for them and in them. And I think creators like you are at some point going to wake up and be like, I have one channel that's very successful. Why don't I spin off 3 more? With 3 creators I really trust, family, whatever it is, that I really trust, and then figure out a way to grow them from scratch. And it's not very hard for you to do, because the hard part was getting to a couple of million followers in the first place. Right. Because once you have that, even if you say I'm only transferring 100K to the next one, that's enough of a seed for them to build their next go from 100K to a million.
Right.
So the MCNs in China work very well. I think that's definitely going to be good careers. But India will have to choose manufacturing or,
soft power.
Messaging, soft power, hard power. So I think, like you said, like land, this, that, and all, narrative also really matters. And I think, like Disney was known as the storyteller of the American empire.
Right.
Disney's so impactful.
Right.
Like everything from Marvel, the toys, this, that. The kids watch Disney, they grow up in a certain way, dude.
The
Disney
ethical structure is the same.
Disney can decide in other countries how people feel about themselves from childhood.
Right.
Which is very powerful.
Very powerful. Right. Got it. Well, it's been good, man. I hope you've enjoyed yourself.
Yeah, I had fun. It's always nice chatting with you. We should do this more often.
Yeah. Whenever
I'm not doing the Bollywood thing. I'm not oversaturating myself. Like, I've learned so much in the last 2 years. I'm like a totally different person compared to what I was when I was 25, 26. But I want to keep those insights wrapped. I want to make sure I do like 1 or 2 podcasts a year max. And just come out and tell you everything I've learned. And because I'm doing so many things, I'm learning everything on the fly. So every 2 months, I'm learning some new thing. And I'm like, oh shit, what I was thinking about last time was wrong. And I'm very I'm trying to be honest in the sense that like, I'll go out on camera and I'll be like, guys, I was thinking about this 3 months ago, I was wrong. And I don't mind doing that. I think changing your mind is a sign of success. Is a sign of evolution.
Right.
But so far, everything that I've thought through very well. So I'm making sure everything that I've said today, I've thought through and I've written down at least sometime in the past. Or I've heard from people who I really trust and respect. But yeah, I'm going to keep it to like just 1 or 2 pods a year. So thank you so much for doing this. I don't know anywhere else. Everywhere else, I'll have to restrain, like you're right. I'll have to go down.
You'll have to infantilize the audience. You'll have to talk to them like they're kids about their jobs going away. And I feel like this is sort of a restriction of the media ecosystem we are part of, which I found actually to be the case, not just in content creation, but all media. All media people are aware they have to be stupider to make it work. And this is just artistic sacrifice is the cost that all actors, singers, all these people pay to make money out of their, art. I think,
but it's not just to make money, just to get like scale,
relevance, status, whatever that might be. Hopefully, this is not going to be that. So, thanks, bro. I appreciate that.
Likewise.